Welcome back. All right, guys, we are in afternoon of day 8. Afternoon of day 8. I really feel like this could be one of the last of the state's witnesses. We'll see. Oh, Nicole, you'll have to let us know in chat if I see from your sad face. Might have been rough. Maybe we can watch that at the end if they finish early. But good to see you guys. I'm gonna start right into it. Let's see what we got.
All right. Let the record reflect that Ms. Simon is present with her counsel and that the attorneys for the state are present as well as Detective Lemons. Anything we need to take up before we bring in the jury? Thank you.
No, Your Honor.
All right, very well. Please bring in the jurors.
Bring the jury. Bring the jury. Hey, Laura. Kate the bestest. Yep. Queen Bella. Pointer lover.
Jurors entering.
Thank you very much, Smith. And good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Please have a seat. The day is beautiful. I'm glad you had an opportunity to experience a little bit of that. I want to ask, has everyone been able to comply with the court's instructions? Yes. No one has spoken with anyone about the case, discussed the case, or had any done any research? No. Okay. All right. Madam Parker,
Lindsay.
Ms. Parker.
Hater.
Your Honor, the state would call our next witness, Dr. Darasol.
Dr. Darasol? Is that what she said? We are on 34th witness. And we're going to get the female prosecutor.
The evidence you say in the court and jury in the trial position should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, sir.
First, the audio a little.
All right. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Doctor, will you tell the jury who you are and where you work, please?
Absolutely. My name is Laura, L-O-R-A, Darrisaw, D-A-R-R-I-S-A-W. I work for the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, the GBI.
And what do you do at the GBI?
I'm a medical examiner at the GBI.
Will you tell
Medical
the jury a little bit
examiner.
about your background, your education, your training to be a medical examiner?
Yes, ma'am. I received my Bachelor of Science degree in Electrical Engineering from Marquette University in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I then received my medical doctorate degree from the Medical College of Wisconsin. Following that, I did 4 years of residency training in pathology at the hospitals of the Medical College of Wisconsin, which trained me to be a general pathologist. And then I did specialty training in pediatric pathology at Baylor College of Medicine in Houston, Texas. And I did another 2-year fellowship. And then I did 1 year of specialty training in forensic pathology, and that was at the GBI through the Medical College of Georgia.
And how long have you been a medical examiner with the GBI?
Since 2004.
So about 20 years.
Yes.
Your Honor, the state would tender Dr. Darasol as an expert in forensic pathology at this time.
I'm familiar with Dr. Darasol. There's no objection.
All right. The witness is so qualified.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And actually, I think it was 2002. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
2002.
22 years.
Yes.
All right. Can you explain to the jury just briefly what the duties of a medical examiner are?
So yeah, primarily the duties of a medical examiner are to examine people who have died in certain circumstances. Generally, the circumstances are that individual has died suddenly and unexpectedly, or has died from unnatural type events such as traumatic events. And the purpose of the role of the medical examiner is to determine the cause and manner of death by doing an autopsy.
Tell them also what an autopsy is, since you mentioned that.
So an autopsy is an examination of a person who's died.
Don't worry, we've got it on 1.25. I'll slow it back down when she gets to the past the introductions, technical explanation, that part when she gets to Quentin's case.
There's two major components to the autopsy. The first component is the external examination. The external examination is very similar to the type of examination that we get when we go to the doctor as live people. We get our height and weight taken. The doctor examines our external body, and that's what the pathologist does. And then in an autopsy, there's also an internal component. And with the internal examination, the body is cut in such a manner as to remove the organs that are in the body cavities to evaluate those organs. And then, like I said, the purpose of doing the external and internal is to determine the cause of death and then a manner of death.
Okay. And when you do an autopsy, what sort of clues are you looking for that can tell you the cause and manner of death? I realize that's a long list, but could you just give us some examples?
Yeah, sure. Briefly, so to even begin an autopsy, we begin with information about the death, the circumstances of the death. And that is the same as when we go to the doctor. We have to tell the doctor why we're there. We have certain symptoms. There's a reason for us to be there. And that's the same with an autopsy. There's always some degree of information of the circumstances of the individual's death that we have to start with. Some of those circumstances are obvious in terms of the cause of death. We know that a person has gotten shot, and so it's kind of obvious that they died of potentially gunshot wound. And in that instance, the autopsy documents the wounds, provides vital information for court purposes in terms of getting the bullet, for instance. In some instances, a person may die in bed, and we get information from family members about their history, and then that may give us clues as to why they died. So we always have to start with some pieces of information concerning the circumstances of their death.
All right. And is looking at someone's medical history a normal part of performing an autopsy to see what sort of health they were in?
That's correct.
Moving to this specific case involving 20-month-old Quentin Simon, after remains were found in this case, do you recall being consulted by members of the district attorney's office?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And did they come and meet with you and show you photographs of what there was
That's
as far as
correct.
remains?
Yes.
Okay. And then are you aware that those remains went to the FBI,
Yes, ma'am.
to a forensic anthropologist?
That's correct.
Okay. After the FBI was done, were the remains sent to your office?
Yes, following the FBI examination of the skeletal remains of this child, I did receive those skeletal remains, and my examination was limited because the FBI was primarily involved as anthropologists, and I'm not.
So, this looks like it's a quick testimony, but again, just it is dealing with some sensitive matter. So if you need to step out, step out.
Limited because the FBI was primarily involved as anthropologists, and I'm not an anthropologist. So my involvement in terms of evaluating the skeletal remains was inventorying the bones that we received.
Now, in a situation where the remains are primarily bones, would you be able to perform an autopsy?
No, not in the sense of obviously what I've just described to you as a complete autopsy on an individual who, let's say, is an intact body. So when there's only bones, there's going to be very limited ability to be able to provide enough information to say how a person has died.
Okay. And so is it normal in the situation where the remains are basically bones for a forensic anthropologist to be consulted?
Yes.
I would like to talk to you about one specific potential cause of death, and that is what is commonly known as sudden infant death syndrome, or SIDS, as people here are called. What is the medical term for that?
So SIDS is sudden infant death syndrome. That's the acronym for SIDS. And SIDS is actually a definition of a death. It's not anything that one finds in a child. So it's a very strict definition. SIDS is defined as a death in a child who's 1 year old or less, whereby the autopsy doesn't identify any specific cause of death. The autopsy doesn't identify an infectious disease process or trauma. So we call these negative autopsies. And so the autopsy is negative. In addition to that, the definition of SIDS also requires that the investigative information doesn't reveal any suspicious circumstances surrounding the death, or the investigation doesn't reveal any, for instance, in a sleep environment, not an unsafe sleep environment that may cause a child to asphyxiate or suffocate. So it's very strictly defined as being a negative autopsy in a certain age, 1 year old or less, and no suspicious circumstances.
Okay. So a 20-month-old child would be too old to fall under the definition of SIDS.
That's correct.
Give me just 1 minute.
I wonder if this will be fast because they're just trying to prove he didn't die from SIDS.
Just to go a little bit further regarding the skeletal remains, in this specific case, you were not able to perform any of your duties beyond just doing an inventory of the bones. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And in this case, this wasn't just like remains found lying out somewhere. They had actually been in a landfill and had damage done to the bones.
Correct. Subjected to, environmental damage as a result of being in the landfill.
That's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Dr. Jaroslaw. How are you?
I'm good. Good afternoon.
So when you received the remains, you weren't able to conduct the normal autopsy, so you couldn't remove any of the organs or tissues or anything like that because you just didn't have them.
Correct.
And if I'm understanding correctly, did you receive any tissue samples or was it just the bones you received?
So in the inventory, everything came to us from the GBI, packaged in bags and multiple bags. Mostly everything was bones. There was small material that could not be definitively identified as organs or skin, but there was some degree of what we would identify as soft tissue.
Okay. So there was some soft tissue then?
Yes.
Okay. And did you perform any testing or anything on that?
I did not know.
Were you asked to?
No, sir.
Okay. And I was just curious. You said that, of course, in this particular case, when you say you perform an external examination, I assume that means you would look at the body in its normal state in a normal autopsy, correct?
In a normal autopsy, yes.
Right. And that wasn't possible here, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And same thing with the internal examination. Again, you'd see a normal body and you would be able to look, I'm not trying to be graphic, but you'd split the ribs and the cranium and be able to pull the organs and tissues out as needed, correct?
Yes, we make the routine cuts to gain access to the organs in the body.
And again, you weren't able to do that here.
Correct.
But you also mentioned the other thing a minute ago to Ms. Parker, that you were told the circumstances surrounding the death. I'm curious, were you given any of the circumstances surrounding the death, or were you just given the bones and the tissue sample?
No, I knew the circumstances surrounding the death. Our office was initially informed of the death in October of 2022, that the child had been missing for a period of time, and then the skeletal remains had been, or some of them, the whole body was never recovered. Skeletal remains had been retrieved. I got the bones to look at. Basically, my looking at them was limited, and that was in March of 2023.
Okay. And you mentioned one thing, Ms. Parker, too, was talking about asphyxia or suffocation. We understand 20 months old is a bit old for SIDS, correct?
Correct.
But it's not too old for us to asphyxiate, correct?
It depends on, asphyxia is a very broad term. So asphyxia can be choking on a foreign object, for instance, either a food object or a toy or something like that, or a child can be intentionally suffocated. So asphyxia is broad, and a 20-month-old is not too old for
Well, then let's break it
that
down.
in the broad sense.
Then let's break that down. What's the definition of asphyxia, so we can start there then?
Asphyxia basically means a lack of oxygen for a variety of different reasons. You may not get oxygen because of a certain position you're in, where your nose and mouth are obstructed.
That would be Johnson, that would be covered under soft tissue. But it is not a full recovery of him is the way I take that, you know. But it would be under the soft tissue portion.
Because of a certain position you're in where your nose and mouth are obstructed, you may not be able to get oxygen because something is obstructing your airway if you choke on a piece of food or something like that. So it's very broad, meaning a lack of oxygen to the brain.
Basically just means a lack of oxygen.
Correct.
It can be because you're choking, it can be because something lodged in your throat, it can be because somebody's strangling you. It can be for any of those reasons, but that's all asphyxia means, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, and would it be, do you think it would be important for you to know that and you said the other thing you investigate when you're talking to Ms. Parker was about the sleeping area. Would that be something you would need to know for a 20-month-old death?
A lot less important in a 20-month-old because a 20-month-old is able to turn around in bed and move around. They're not as immobile in a sleeping environment as a younger infant.
Okay, well, let's talk about that. At 20 months old, what is a normal 20-month-old's capabilities?
Generally 20 months old, they're able to walk. They're able to roll around in bed and turn from side to side and lift their head. So those are things that they can do.
Okay, so they're ambulatory.
Correct.
They can move and they have their own mind about things, correct?
Correct.
All right. So in this particular case, would it have been relevant to you to know that there was vomit in the playpen where the child was sleeping?
It would have been a piece of information if I had a autopsy to perform on an intact body. The information about the scene itself would be information that we received that we would take into account.
Was that information that was passed along to you or no?
I'm not aware of that. I'm not sure.
Okay. All right. And that being said, I think that's all the questions I have. Thank you, Dr. Darisol.
Sure.
Can you redirect?
No, Your Honor. Thank you. May she be
I see where
Sir,
he's
ma'am.
going with that,
Your Honor.
but it was never confirmed to actually be vomit in there yet that I've heard of. Obviously, the detectives said it smelled like it and thought it was, but yeah, I don't think that's going to change her rulings.
The state may call its next witness.
What do we got next?
Marion Lemons.
Oh, we're going back to Detective Lemons. Okay. We've heard from her a lot. We like Miss Lemons. This case had to be a toll on her. Yeah, there's a lot of things that can cause vomit, Nicole. A lot. Unfortunately, with what
When
they
we left off with our last fact
recovered, they
witness,
just
before
won't
we went
know.
into the expert witnesses, where we were at is that the team had found Quentin, right?
Yes,
And that was what day?
that was on November 18th.
Okay. In the days following November 18th, was the defendant interviewed one final time?
Yes, she was.
Before we get to that, I want to ask you kind of a few miscellaneous questions about some things.
Sure.
Okay. The first is a question about venue, and I may have hit this, but I just want to.
Guys, sounds like we're going to get another interview with Leilani. It's going to be an interesting one.
The first is a question about venue, and I may have hit this, but I just want to make sure. Have you reviewed the indictment in this case?
Yes, I have.
Have you seen that it alleges a number of false statements on a number of different dates?
Yes, it does.
Are you aware of all of those statements and where they were made?
Yes.
And were they all made in Chatham County?
Yes, they were.
It's for every false statement charged in the indictment.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. There has been an exhibit admitted into evidence as State's Exhibit 62, Circle K footage.
Yes, sir.
And which one of the two trips that night would that footage have been from, the first or the second?
It's her first trip that night.
Now, have you reviewed that footage?
Yes, I have.
And is it fair to say that it includes a bunch of different camera angles?
Yes.
Is there a camera angle in which you can tell exactly what it is that she purchases?
Yes, there is.
And how is it that you can see exactly what it is that she purchases during that?
Yeah. So it faces, the camera angle faces the register as well as what is being rung up by the cashier. So you're actually seeing the receipt as it's actively being run up.
I'd like to display for you the portion of State's Exhibit 63 that I think you're talking about. So what I've done here is I've opened up the player that includes all this footage, and it's a whole bunch of camera angles, right?
Yes, it is.
And here we've picked the register camera that you're talking about and made it full screen, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So sort of an overhead view of the register that she pays at.
Correct.
Okay. Can you tell us where on the screen we can see what it is that she purchases? And you can
Yes.
step down to do that.
Yep. So on the left,
Walk us through it line by line, please.
on the left side of the screen, you see like an itemized list of what's occurring with the register, as well as a quantity. So our targets are right here. We have a natural light 25-ounce can. The quantity's changed to 2 cans. And then we have the cigarillos green, quantity changed to 2. And then, the driver's license scanned, and that's the transaction for Leilani's purchase that night.
Can you tell us where we are in the timestamp here?
So the timestamp that we're paused at right now is 10:29 p.m. on the 4th of October.
And I'm going to hit play from here and we'll just watch the transaction, okay?
Okay.
That was loud. Holy.
Is it moving or not?
This is that gas station, the Circle K she went to before going to Big Red.
Did you hear what she said though?
I believe she asked for rellos or cigarillos.
Stop the playback at 10:31:22.
Be safe, Steph. Yeah, she has a blanket wrapped around her.
Now, moving on to another miscellaneous item. Do you remember hearing Officer Schenker of the crime scene unit or forensics unit talking about the substance that was found in the back of the Dodge Journey?
Yes, I do.
Did you look back at the file to see whether you could figure anything out about what that was?
So in Schenker's testimony, and it was previously mentioned, we believed it was like a rice cereal. That's also what Miss Leilani told us it was.
All right, and have you prepared an exhibit to address this issue?
Yes.
Is it something besides rice cereal?
I'd like to approach with what I've marked as State's Exhibit 94A and 94B. Do you recognize those two items?
Yes, I do.
Can you describe to us what they are?
Sure. 94A is going to be a PowerPoint of what 94B's printout is. It's a collection of photographs with the rice cereal.
Okay, so 94A is the disc, 94B is the printout of that.
Yes.
I would introduce this in as 94A and B.
No objection, Your Honor.
94A or admitted without objection.
Yes, I've been thinking that too. Or soak something up, kind of like kitty litter would, maybe. I don't know. Hey, Wolfie. Good to see ya. Look at Kevin, everybody. Look at Kevin.
Just need a moment here, Your Honor.
This maroon shirt she's wearing does look like a shirt Letitia wore in trial, doesn't it? Hey, Amanda Meatfoot. Hey, hippie chick. Isn't Kevin cute, Southern gal? Sorry, he's handsome. Kevin's handsome. Hey, Wolfie, I think my nerdy nuts just arrived. I gotta go check the mail.
All right. I think I've got this working right now. And I'm trying hard not to have to ask for a recess here because we're in the home stretch, okay? What is this first slide here show?
So this is a photograph of the back of the Dodge Journey that was taken on 10/6, and it's kind of just displaying the rice cereal in the back of the vehicle.
Appears to be pretty evenly and widely distributed.
Yes, it is everywhere.
Moving to the next slide, what is this that we're going to see here?
This is just a short clip of the interview that we conducted on 10/5, where she's explaining what that is in the back of her vehicle.
Now, just to make sure we're clear here, the date stamp in the top left corner says 10/6. Can you just, I'm not trying to catch you. I just don't want anybody to be confused.
Yeah, it's the 10/5 interview, but it's early in the morning on 10/6. So technically it's the next day.
Almost 5 minutes after midnight.
Yes.
Sorry, before that starts, I was running out to grab the mail. I want to see that. Yeah, that didn't just explode, did it? That's pretty evenly spread out. Wow. Come on, Leilani. And it doesn't even look like, you know, because she had young kids, it doesn't even look like they got the bag and like flung it. That looks, in my opinion, intentional.
Left corner says 10-6. Can you just, I'm not trying to catch you. I just don't want anybody to be confused.
Yeah, it's the 10-5 interview, but it's early in the morning on 10-6. So technically it's the next day.
Almost 5 minutes after midnight.
Yes.
Man, they had a lot of interviews that night or that day, didn't they? A lot.
Okay.
Right, Monica? That was very obvious. Oh no, Superman's having trouble. Please don't ask for a recess. Please don't ask for a recess. Oh, we're going to recess. I scrolled ahead. We're going to recess already.
Pressure. I can see it. Let me see here. Yeah, I'm sorry. I guess I haven't had passed from that. Almost made it through the whole thing.
Almost. All right. 5-10 minute break. We'll see how this goes. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, no research, don't discuss the case, and you're going to take a quick break.
All right, let's see if we can zoom past it. Did we give ourselves enough time? Oh, yep, we get to zoom past it, y'all. Here we go. The beauty of coming back a little later.
Containers of the rice cereal, like baby rice cereal.
Moving on to the next slide.
Wait a second. Court TV came back later. Let me go. Hang on. Let me go check out Law and Crime. I don't want us to be. For some reason, there's been a couple times that Court TV has come back after they should have, and last time this happened, Law and Crime had it. So let's go see here. Oh, Law and Crime has it. Perfect. Oops. We put our boosters on because we can never hear it on Law and Crime.
Your Honor, but one never knows what the future.
That's so true. Please bring me the jurors.
There we go. I got mine, Allie. Yes. There are more recesses in this case than the entire time I was in elementary school. I gotta open it. I don't even remember what I ordered. Oh no, they didn't help with the delivery. I'm sorry, yep.
Thank you. Thank you for your patience. Please have a seat. believe we are ready to begin. Mr. Dean?
All right, so what are we going to hear in this clip to the best of your recollection?
So this will be myself and Brad Snyder asking Leilani what's in the back of the vehicle. You'll hear her explaining that it's rice cereal.
Listen closely to it because I'm going to ask you a couple follow-up questions, okay?
Oh, wow.
Over a month, my friend gave me a big old bag of a whole bunch of baby cereal that she didn't have anything to do with. I put it in the car.
What type of baby cereal? Like
First.
she put like it's almost like a rice consistency.
Rice or oatmeal is what it is. And
What type of container was it in?
the actual container itself that comes into the store.
What is that for?
It's blue and it's about this big and comes up like this. And it has a screw on top that pops open. Oh, whatever.
And what happened? How did it come?
Two of them that she gave me, she had just opened. She tried it with her baby, her 9-month-old baby, and it didn't work very well with him. So she gave me those and a whole bunch of the other ones that she bought. When I put it in that car, got home, took it out, the bag ripped, it fell, exploded. Got another bag, collected up what I could, and took it inside. I still have all that baby cereal from that day except for that one.
And just describe to me again when you came home.
You know, that's something that she's saying happened more than a month ago, right?
Yes,
This explosion of baby cereal in the car.
yes.
And what did she say she did with the canisters after she had cleaned?
Bitch, a month ago? You did not just say that that has been in your car for a month. I can't with her sometimes.
And what did she say she did with the canisters after she had cleaned it up?
Brought them inside.
Took them inside the house, right?
Yes.
That's them now.
Move into the next slide. What is this still image from?
So this is the police response on 10-5. It's captured by the body camera footage of, I believe it's Officer Jetson. And we're looking at the back of the residence, specifically right there is Daniel. To the right is the residence and to the left is the pool.
What time of day is this image, this still image from?
10 o'clock that morning.
And how does that relate?
You see Daniel back there, he's kind of hard to make out, but that's Danny right here. If you can see where I'm circling with my cursor.
The time that the police first responded, roughly.
It's shortly after their response there, the patrol officers.
Yeah, and at this point, no police officer had been in the house, right?
Not to my knowledge, no.
So no police officer would have pulled anything out of the house and set it
No.
outside. Okay. What is that wooden structure on the right side of the frame?
I believe they described it as like a tiki bar area, but this is just, about shoulder height bar that's in their backyard.
And what is that? What are the blue things sitting on there?
So that is two containers, that's two plastic containers of the rice cereal, like baby rice cereal.
Moving on to the next slide, what is this image?
Oh my god.
This is just a more clear view that Officer Schenker, it's a photograph that he took that
Yep,
night.
right
And
there.
again, you're seeing the bar area and those two images of rice cereal. Or two containers of rice cereal.
The next slide, what have we done here? Just zoomed in on that one.
Correct.
Bitch, you lie. She lies too
And
much.
then the final slide, what is this?
This is just a Google image of what we were previously looking at.
Okay, Gerber cereal for baby rice type.
Yes,
Okay. So those two canisters were out there on the tiki bar when police first arrived.
correct.
And the defendant had told you she took them inside like a month ago,
Yes,
or more than a month ago, I
yes.
think. Any reason you know of that those things would be outside?
Objection, Your Honor, calls for speculation.
I mean,
No
that's
further
fair.
Questions on this exhibit?
I know, MJ, her facial expressions are crazy.
Let's talk about the final interview of the defendant. What was the date again?
Her final interview was on November 21st
And where was it conducted?
at the FBI office.
By this time,
Yep.
Quentin had been found on November 18th.
Yes, he had.
And at this point, had you taken out warrants, at the time of this November 21 interview, had you taken out warrants for the arrest of the defendant?
Yes, I did.
Now, were y'all bringing her in there in part at least to notify her that the remains had been discovered?
Yes.
And did she know that before she entered the interview room with y'all and was told that?
That the remains were discovered? No.
Did she know before the interview began, though, that she was being arrested?
She assumed so, yes.
Okay. And
Mm.
y'all had, who did y'all correspond with to get her in that day?
Okay, wait, I was getting ready to say something, but let me hear this answer first before I speak on it.
Y'all had, who did y'all correspond with to get her in that day to the FBI office?
Yep. Her mother, Billy Joe.
And
Okay.
she had been told that the defendant was being arrested that day, right?
I don't believe we told Billy either.
Oh.
I believe they both just assumed that's what was happening that day.
Okay. Where in the FBI office did the interview take place?
It's in the
That's a little bit different than than what we heard on the streets. Yeah, yep. I'm like, oof, that is different than what we were being told. They assumed she was being arrested, not that they had to go work with FBI and plan a last meal and hand deliver her to the police station. Yeah, look at that. What lie are we up to? What lie? Well, they did work with Billy Joe to get her in for the interview, but she wasn't aware that she was being arrested. They assumed it. It's not a big deal. It's just, for me, it solidifies why I have made the decision for myself personally, and this gets misconstrued. I'm not telling anybody else they have to do this, but for myself personally, why I want to continue to keep those connected to cases at arm's length, not get involved with them behind the scenes, because it just gives us a bias instantly. We believe what they say, and then we find out later that, oh, it was a lie. Heartbreaking. Again, that's just where I stand with it. I'm not saying others have to stand with that.
interview room, which is in like the front corridor area.
Now, is it fair to say that this was the first interview in which she was not free to leave?
Yes.
It was in police custody at this point.
Yes, she was.
Given that, did you all, at the outset of the interview, advise her of her Miranda rights?
Yes.
Did you advise her of her right to remain silent?
Yes, there's a form that we read to her, and we provided her with one to read as well.
Did she indicate to you that she understood all those rights?
Yes, she did.
Did she have any questions about any of them?
I don't believe she did, no.
And did you all ask her whether she would waive those rights and agree to speak to you?
Yes.
And did she do that?
Yes, she did.
And was that agreement memorialized on the form that you've discussed?
Yes.
And did she also memorialize her understanding of each of her rights by initialing next to each one of them?
Yes.
I'd like to approach with what I've marked as State's Exhibit 80.
I
You
agree
recognize that
completely. Yep.
Yes, I do.
Can you tell us what it is?
It is the FBI's template format for advice of rights. This is the document that I believe Agent Solomon read to her and explained prior to this interview.
And were you present for that?
Yes, I was.
I would introduce this as State's Exhibit 80.
Can I look at it real quick, Judge, just to make sure? I think I've seen it before. Okay. I think I've seen it, but I just want to make sure. No objection, Your Honor.
All right, 80 is admitted.
Now, how long roughly was this interview in its entirety?
Almost 3 hours.
I'm not going to watch the whole thing.
No.
Okay.
No.
Did it, like some of the other interviews we've heard about, start with this kind of long period of
3
rapport building?
hour
Yes, it did.
thing.
And eventually, did you all get into the substance of that?
Yes.
Have we prepared a disc containing a few excerpts from this interview?
Yes.
And do those excerpts capture essentially what her story was for that day?
Yes, it does.
I'd like to approach with what I've marked as State's Exhibit 81. Do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
Can you tell us what it is?
It is a collection of the November 21st interview. It's a
Uh,
CD.
Series of excerpts.
Yes.
Do you remember how many total?
There's 3.
And what, could you just kind of describe to us what the 3 excerpts are, if you remember?
Sure.
And if not, we can just walk through them.
Yeah. So the first one is going to be kind of the initial conversation that we had about cocaine. In this video, you will see Leilani telling us what cocaine does to her, what she's learned, through some of the counseling that she's had. She'll talk about how she's, experienced illusions, change in emotions while high on cocaine. And we're discussing whether or not that's what happened that night. The second clip is Leilani changing the trash story. She's talking about how there's now 2 bags of trash, and we're discussing whether or not Quentin was in one of those bags of trash. The third clip is us confronting Leilani on how many stories she's told us over the last 2 months and why she told these stories.
Now, what was kind of her core claim on this day about what she remembered about the Azalea trip and the time period leading up to it? What was she saying to you on this day?
The majority of the time, she's saying that she doesn't remember the Azalea trip. She only remembers returning home, specifically going over the railroad tracks right before she gets to her residence. There's also other times where she says specifically that she was throwing away just trash, shrimp pasta, while at Azalea.
Did this claim that she was making to you about just not remembering anything from like 11 something to when she was driving home from Azalea sometime around 1:20 onward in the morning, did this to you conflict with things she had told you before?
Yes, and in the same interview.
Did the
It
clips
conflicts
on
in the
this
same
disc
interview.
fairly and accurately depict the portions of this interview that you're describing?
Yes, they do.
Messages
Other
will
than
not stop coming in.
it being excerpts cut out of a larger file, has it been altered or modified in any way that you know?
No.
Your Honor, I would introduce this as State's Exhibit 81.
So can we approach on this exhibit real quick? I just
Yes.
wanna Put something on the record.
Okay. Lord Farquhar wants to put something on the record. Let's speed up through this. I did queue up to when the interview starts on Court TV because I do think I'll listen to a little bit of it on Law and Crime and then go hear Court TV because typically Court TV's had better audio, but we'll see. Oh, Laundry, you have fun with those grandbabies.
Okay, we are back on the record.
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hilliard. State's Exhibit 81 is admitted without objection.
Before I hit play, where are you in here?
I'm right next to Agent Solomon, to her right, but I am off camera. Occasionally you'll see my arm, but the majority of the time I'm off camera.
The note that Leilani wrote to Lord Farquhar says, "Am I eating too many Altoids on camera? Would it be safe for me to have another one now, or does that look bad to the jury?"
This is the first file on the disc. It is 20 minutes and 1 second.
I'm just kidding.
And I'll play that now.
The only substance I ever consumed alcohol. So I know one drink versus several drinks feels. So how does like the equivalent of that? Like,
All right, let's see how Court TV sounds. Do we have our booster on? We do.
This is the first file on the desk. It is 20 minutes and 1 second in length, and I'll play that now.
I know 100%.
About the same, aren't they? Okay, I'm going to boost this up loud, and you guys are gonna have to crank your earbuds, so I will come in at a whisper.
I know 100% several drinks feels, so how does like the equivalent of that? Like if you had your normal, like what does it feel like when you tripled your normal?
Honestly, time goes by quickly. And it's almost like you're just come up with a little bit. If that makes sense. You're so high, you can lose touch with reality.
So how does that usually feel? Like what?
So it's like that television, focus on just one thing, down, getting high. Yeah, so but you turn on more, there's focus on that one thing. But when you get that high or whatever, you start, as they said, like, I didn't know the shit that makes sense. It's like delusions in your own mind, but you lose touch with reality.
Like are you seeing things or your brain is just like making up stories?
Your brain makes up shit. Yeah, you can end up doing things like.
Sorry guys, I didn't realize I had it sped up. I don't want to speed through this. She's just talking about what it's like for her when she's high. And then another reason to go on Court TV is they have the closed captioning, so hopefully that helps.
It makes sense. It's like delusions in your own mind, but you lose touch with reality.
Like are you seeing things or your brain is just like making up stories?
Your brain makes up shit. Yeah, you can end up doing things like you don't even remember like, getting up and making up high. It happens a lot. There's probably a months that I woke up in the past and like it was there were cars going somewhere else. I just don't know who we have. And I'm like terrified. I like Danny
For like feeling out like
so when I was on sleep or something, I swear up and down that he did.
but you think it was you when you were just on.
It's a possibility. Now that I know the effects, the extent of the effects that it can have on your brain, puts holes into your brain.
How long does that last? Like that particular feeling?
Just hold there.
Like it could be just 15 to 30 minutes or how long, like what does that, this combo do?
Makes you very energetic, very numb feeling. And you know, having a lot of racing thoughts. Sometimes I hear things that it's not true, right there. Sometimes you see things that's not there. But there are times that they don't eat, like shadow people. You know, there's times that they're like for days on it. I'm not sure what you do. Me too as a kid. And honestly, I even tell you half the shit I said. However, I could even tell you half the shit I said, you know, during those times. It's like, it's all a mixture of things, but I can't tell you what was going on.
Will it come back later or is it just like?
It's almost like a dream. You might get bits and pieces here and there, but you never fully the time out.
So it's not like a dream where you were kind of over.
Yeah, you get bits and pieces in there that you never get the full. This, you know, not sometimes like you did this, and I'm like, no, I didn't. Yeah. Same thing happened when you get so high. So it's like, you just don't know. It's almost like the light is on.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's
You're like,
So she's trying to claim that her face right there, like when she gets so high and gets messed up, she doesn't even know what she's done. It kind of feels like she was just trying to lay out her defense, knowing what was coming. Just my opinion.
it's almost like the light is on.
mm-hmm.
You know,
You're like, about it. So like in hindsight, how do you think that's what happened?
there's a possibility. I was still crying in the hospital when they mentioned that some people get so high that their brain kind of just shuts down and go on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because I'm not lost in the sand and just start crying and she was just like, what's wrong? And I was just like, I just don't know what to think anymore.
naturally just go blood up your veins, the companies you will be there was already. Yeah. Cause you, I mean, it sounds like at least by like 1:30, you were pretty, at least learn to drive safely, you know, and all that, so kind of been for very long if you did consider it like that, right? They say the difference was between up to an hour to 2 hours, like you can move and function like you're home. You're even in your head at home, but you're not. Yeah. So by the time like it then you kind of come out, your memories get more clear and
So there she said that there can be a phase of an hour to 2 hours where your memory is not there because your brain is not functioning properly. If you guys want me to stop pausing and saying what I'm hearing, I just don't know if you guys are catching it. And I'm also reading the chat to see if you're catching something different than me.
so by the time like it then you kind of come out, your memories get more clear and remember talking and operating car and going different places. Just kind of click back in. I'm gonna make sure it makes sense of everything. But not care makes sense of what happened from the process. Yeah, that makes sense. No, I don't know exactly what happened. Do you remember driving? We're going back. I'm going back home. No, hold on. I don't feel like. Do you remember any feelings or? Well, I felt a lot of numbness. I feel colored drugs. Honestly, they numb your feelings. They're not suppressing. Yeah. And your feelings, just everything, your body in general, your lips, your mouth, your skin, everything is not. Like that one, somebody put their head in the sludge. You would have later, guys. Just understand.
I'm not catching everything, but she's basically describing the numbness she feels being high and missing time frames. That's what I'm grasping from her description.
Just understand. Everything I know is the same thing. Do this. Leilani, Christina and I have been here with you from the start. I think you know that. Yeah. Her and I have basically been attached to your family, and I think both of us have an emotional.
Okay, that's Detective Lemons that's speaking, and she's saying to Leilani, basically, you know that we have intended to arrest you from the start, which Leilani confirms, and now she's explaining how she's been close and connected to Leilani's family.
Been attached to your family, and I think both of us have an emotional connection to what happened. And everyone right here wants to know what happened. And that's how it does it. And I started putting the pieces together for that, Yeah.
So Detective Lemons says everybody wants to know what happened, and Leilani's basically saying, I've been trying to put the pieces together. Leilani is really, really hard to hear because she's kind of mumbling in her voice, and it's a struggle.
Pieces together for that, Yeah. And so things happen. None of us are in that position, none of us are now. But the best way we can move forward is finding out what happened. And I don't want it to come down to some bad person telling us. I don't want there to be any guess. I'm tired of the stories from the media, and I'm sure you are. Because we don't know what they're going to say when it comes out that we found him. And we've seen how they treated you for the last, almost 2 months. And without.
Okay, So they're basically telling her they want to get an accurate story because they know how it came out in media, and the things that have been said that she has told them is not accurate, basically. But once this breaks that they have found Quentin, and she's been arrested, like they're basically telling her they want to get ahead of the narrative and they want to hear the truth from her. And then the other detective, the pretty one we see, I can't remember her name, she was saying we know how they've treated you the past 2 months. So they're also building her up to try to get her to confess.
The last, almost 2 months. And without your side of the story, it's gonna be whatever they want to say. I don't remember hearing him at all. I don't remember taking him to do anything like this. She's never coming back. I remember coming home. Like I want to have another life. So what did I do that? So it was like everything was just normal. I remember the way home and I didn't understand exactly what I was in the car. What about the next time? When that's the fact. So I woke up. Devastated. And I went back and looked and he wasn't there. I was very devastated. I just started screaming and calling everybody for help. So when did you remember that stuff that happened? What happened? First, I think she means that they tried. Which is something. The dragon? Yeah. We gotta talk about it.
Okay, so from what I'm making out, and gosh, guys, this is really hard. Please put in chat what you think is being said. But she's saying like bits and pieces of her memory have came back, and she didn't want to remember, but she is remembering. Something happened when she was driving, is what I hear. I'm pretty sure the detective's gonna summarize after this, but this is hard.
Which is something. The dragon? Yeah. We gotta talk about it. Most police and started early shots and just just scared me that I did something like that and taking me to go do some drugs or pick up some drugs somewhere. I wasn't before and fuck with it. So much time happened when I could have been in the hotel. I don't know what to do about the feeling. I didn't know all these things about the drugs I was doing. It just baffles me.
Talking about remembering something when she was at the hotel. It's hard.
All these things about the drugs I was doing. It just baffles me. I don't understand. Well, they were making do some crazy shit. I don't know. I mean, when you talked about like the delusions and things like that, or just Francie's mind, is there something that would, things up when you're not supposed to be, or like demanding some attention, is there something that he was a good baby? When I was trying to lay down, he would sit down, last he was waiting for us. Was that ever annoying or just kind of really distracting? It's cute, honestly. It's not actually singing doing stuff. We would sit there and laugh about it, trying to stay up this night, sleeping and jump up, I'd peek around the corner. I have 2 cats and I barely take care of them. I can't imagine 3 children and the stress of everything that happened that night. Yes, you understand, sir. I'm sure. Yeah. Sorry, I love him so much. Like I was so.
Okay, so what I've made out is that the stress of 3 kids was so much because they're a lot of work. That's basically all I'm grasping here, guys.
Sorry. Yeah. Sorry, I love him so much. Like I was so sometimes when people
swear to God, listen, I'm not there. Don't say nothing else. Just call me.
It's a hard thing to come to terms with, you know. I think that the
figure it out. I'll stay on board.
well, it sounds like the EDR, you know, at least in terms of removing it from allowing you to come from the outside in to help with that kind of thing too. Just kind of curious. So you woke up that morning, I was thinking obviously, and remember, you know, coming back from Delia. When did things kind of click in that, you know, with the orange album, you know, the and all that, like,
I knew what was going through your head. I had worked on the car, so it made sense. I felt the soul.
Okay, so I actually turned it down a little bit and I was able to distinguish some words better, but so what the detective is saying to her is, tell us about the day that you woke up and you remember that day. You remember coming back from, and she never says dumpsters, she just says and then like says something else. And now Leilani is saying that the Orajel was in her car. She remembered she had Orajel in her car, is what she's claiming.
I had worked on the car, so it made sense. I felt the store. And the whole person I know very well, I worked out was this. So that's the only thing in my mind that made sense. As to why I don't know. You know. So when she's like the only person I know I've ever said to do Mark I used to work with. But I don't think I saw that. Oh no. I don't remember stopping there. Really, we're coming back from the railroad tracks. So we don't see the railroad tracks, so just stays in that back end.
yeah. Do you remember going into something? Like a turn or anything? Hearing anything?
She's just describing the drive. She doesn't remember why she went there because she had Orajel in the car. She had been to the store earlier, so it doesn't make sense to her. She does remember the bumps in the road. Linz is asking her, do you remember the turn or anything? She says no.
Like a turn or anything? Hearing anything? Because you gave us pretty detailed story.
I was looking at that life experience, and I was just like, no, I remember that that's where it was. And I was like, how many must be? Or something, you know?
Yeah.
Which would make sense.
Okay, what it sounded like she said was since she saw her Life 360 and where she went, and she was like, I guess I went to see Misty. So she's playing dumb. And again, this might be completely different than what comes out in a transcript with later. This is what I'm just picking up bits and pieces of.
Try to remember the James in the house, and I don't. It's so please come out of James. You know, yeah, I just don't remember James. You know, can't remember the James or anything like that. I just don't understand it.
What do you think?
She's saying that she has these dreams and she doesn't understand, like, what I'm deducing is she doesn't understand which parts are real and which parts are the dreams.
Statement comes out that we found.
Poor mother. Poor James, right? God knows exactly what I'm saying.
I think she said, I didn't kill my child, but I know exactly what you're going to say. Because Lemons asked her to, I'll go back a little bit. First, Lemons asked her to describe the dreams. And that's when she says something about, I didn't kill my child, but I know what you're going to say.
I'm kind of sure God knows exactly what I'm saying. What can you see of that? There's no intention of it. It's not that I was planned out. It's not like I wanted to.
Do you think that you may have?
But you know, everything's working planned out. And like you said, you worked really hard for the last, month and a half to get clean and to recognize safe coping with cousins and that kind of thing. But a lot of times the wrong things line up and something happens and you remember leaving the dumpster, which is exactly how.
Okay, so I can understand Pretty Lady a little better than before. She asked earlier, do you think you may have, meaning kill your child? Leilani did not answer. Now she's talking about her getting clean and what she actually does remember and the possibilities of what she could have done.
You remember leaving the dumpster, which is exactly how we were. We found him exactly in the middle of where we were looking, based on what you told us about coming to Griselda and stopping at the dumpster. We went with, because it was, so knowing all of that, knowing you're in a state and something happens and try to fix it right away. And I think in some ways tried to make it go away like it wasn't real. And you woke up and realized it was real. But I mean, we know that that's what happened, and something you're gonna have to come on with, and we know that people have been very cruel. In the YouTuber culture and all of that I had never experienced or seen. I had never seen anything like that. That there are many film stories now.
Well, that's the first time I heard the YouTubers mentioned in this trial. The detectives basically just saying, I'd never seen anything like the YouTuber culture. Ma'am, we've never seen anything like the YouTuber culture.
There are many films in the YouTuber culture and all of that I had never experienced or seen. I had never seen anything like that. There are many film stories now. And so I really hope that you take a second to just kind of think of what you know your story to be, for yourself.
So she's basically just saying like the YouTuber narrative isn't the narrative. What do you want your story to be? You have the chance basically to tell the truth here, and that will be the story, not the YouTuber culture.
And the only way to give Quinn peace and give yourself peace and move forward for all of you is to realize and acknowledge what happened. And like you said, there was no premeditation, there's no planning, and frankly, I think if you would plan things, it would have not gone away, because it's not planned, but your actions from that night are what brought us all here, and again, because we remember the trips to the dumpster is how we found, again, from head to toe, we found. So I really want you.
Again, she's just reiterating Leilani to tell the truth because all the evidence have led them to them knowing the truth circumstantially. Following her car to the dumpster is what led them to the landfill, which is what led them to Quentin. So it all kind of pieces together. So they're just, reiterating to her to tell the truth.
Again, from head to toe, we found. could possibly done that, and I wish it wasn't happened at the house. Just know that I woke up and I was gone. And I'm gonna without it.
Before she gets to blubbering, the part I made out there was that nothing comes to her mind. She remembers nothing from before when she woke up.
Gone. And I'm gonna without it. I don't know that anymore. I think we can all agree that something. We need to figure out what happened. There's a lot of reasons some people are running over science on that. We're gonna see what they have to say. I really don't think that you want to take this step. There's a lot of way. And there's still your reason. And even if Quentin's not here, he's still your reason. All three of them. And right now, the reason for Quentin that I think we all want to be. Yeah. This is what we know definitively happened. And now there's two of you that know that story. You know. And hopefully Quentin's able to tell us. And we really hope that you're able to know your own truth and kind of level, you know, your own action place, because there's no way for you to heal from it without being motivated and see.
So she's telling her that there's only two people that know this story, Quentin and basically you. And hopefully they have enough that Quentin will be able to tell his story, but Leilani has the opportunity to fully tell it as well. Kind of what I'm getting from it.
Being motivated and see it as what it is. Like you said, it wasn't this long-term ocean's 11 paper of, you know, harming your child. You know, you did harm your child, and you did, you know, and that's just, it's just facts. It isn't under I mean, I've never lied to you about anything. I've never said anything to you that I didn't know for a fact to be true. And I don't believe that you hid him. But you hid him in the dumpster because you had harmed him in some way for that.
Now she's flat out accused her. You hid him in that dumpster because you harmed him in some way prior to that. We'll see what Leilani says.
Wasn't fair. So she came back and come out. Like, how scary is it though to think that you have a scalp? So you did it. My parents thought that she thought I came back and she said, I'll stay if you would black out. You might put some in your vacations. You're just like when somebody blacks out from being drunk. You might not. Yeah. So we're just in the process of memory. What's the last thing you remember before? Seeing them in bed. And then it goes to turning back from Zoe. Did you see him in bed?
Didn't catch that. They asked her what's the last thing she remembers. I think she said seeing him in bed, and then she remembers driving back from Azalea. So she's completely blocking out the act of what she did to Quentin.
then it goes to turning back from Zoe. So we see you in the bed, right when you got home or something, like you came home and did a line and you saw him.
Yeah, he's like
So that was like the
10 something, 10:40.
memory from the truck ride trip. And that's really less than memory all of the night, you know, and then the truck. Yeah.
I said, I had the rubber tracks.
Now, at the end there, what did she arrive at ultimately for the period of time for which she was claiming a total lack of memory?
She said the last thing that she remembered was looking at Quentin and then driving back from Azalea.
Looking at Quentin after the park ride trip.
Yes, and then blacking out and then coming back to it as she's coming back from Azalea.
And what was she saying in there about what caused her to start forming memories again on the way back from Azalea?
Hitting the railroad tracks.
Okay, so fair to say she's claiming something like a 2-hour plus total lack of memory.
Yeah, she would have gotten back from Arkwright shortly after 11, and then she gets back from Azalea around 1:30. So yes.
Okay. And is it fair to say that that period of time for which she's claiming a total lack of memory would encompass both the time period in which law enforcement believed the murder had occurred and the time period in which the disposal of Quentin's body had occurred?
Yes.
So just like the times of the crimes.
Yes, it is.
This next clip, what is this clip number?
So this is us touching on her previous statement back on 10/12, where she's describing very vividly how she threw away the trash. And we're asking her to revisit that memory that she's had. And she's telling us that there's 2 trash bags, and then you'll hear me ask specifically whether or not Quentin was in those trash bags.
And did she outright deny that Quentin was in one of those trash bags?
She does not.
And this clip is later in time than the bit we just watched.
Yes, it is.
This is when y'all are kind of reminding her of her previous statements, which seem to conflict with what she's just told you about this total lack of memory.
Correct.
The story with Sam and Brad.
There was another trash there
Was that what Quentin was in?
before, it was like, 2 minutes later. And then I can't remember. I remember it was for the fingers. Saying when I was trying to get rid of them.
Did you use a trash bag?
I don't recall if I had a trash bag.
Oh my gosh, sorry, that killed my ears. What the hell with the audio there? Let me turn the boost down so that doesn't kill us. We're not hearing much of anything anyway, but dang, that was loud. Holy moly.
I don't recall nothing from before I left the house or from there.
Mm.
Did we hear you? She said there was a trash bag in there, right?
Yes.
And then you said, is that what Quentin was in? Is
Yes.
that right? And at that point, did she say, well, there were 2 trash bags?
Yes.
And did we hear you ask her, did you use a trash bag?
Yes, I did.
And by that, did you mean, did you use a trash bag to dispose of Quentin's body?
Yes.
And was her answer to that, I don't remember grabbing a trash bag?
That was her answer.
In other words, she didn't say, oh, hold on, I didn't dispose of his body.
She did not say that.
Mr. Dean, how long is this second clip?
It is about 3 minutes, Your Honor.
Okay.
Or this would be the third one. Do you remember what it is that we're gonna hear in this clip, more or less?
So we're challenging her on her many stories throughout the last 2 months and why she said these stories to us if she didn't have a memory, why she constantly changed, what happened that night, who went out to Azalea. It's kind of just our last crack at trying to find out what really happened.
Leilani, why did you tell us several times different stories?
I'm trying to wrap my head around it. You said it was good. You were telling us that Brad sat there. You told me that him was sorry. He was like, my little mother, isn't it? And that he watched you. I had no memory, so I know exactly where that. I know it was trash.
She says that the reason she told horrible stories is because she didn't, or told multiple stories is because she didn't want to come off as a terrible mother. That's kind of what I'm taking away from that. And then she says, but I know I didn't throw him out with the trash.
Little mother, isn't it? And that he watched you. I had no memory, so I know exactly where that. I know it was trash. Right now, I can make sense of this, and it's totally, we're chill. And when he said there was no way to go, we're jealous, and I think it was the other theory.
Which is,
That was totally trash. We get out of the house first, and wait for Danny.
but we know now that that trip to Azalea, Quentin was there. So go back to that scene that you made to Savannah and Brian. You remember seeing the trash bag, looking into it?
I didn't really look into that. How tired it was.
So you didn't actually look into it?
The only thing I could do was slow food.
You were pretty discreet though.
Because we had the smell, the slow like shrimp pasta. Not really the smell. It's the same smell of beer. We took it out of the fridge and threw it away.
So you remember wrapping it up?
I remember talking about beer so I could throw it in there. It wasn't heavy at all. And
Leilani, really. Do you remember him being in the trash bag? We know at this point he was.
I don't remember that. I don't remember him in a bag. I don't remember leaving the house with him. I don't remember that. I don't remember that.
Why did you tell us all the story about just all of these stories pretty much?
I'm trying to get sense of it myself. He was the one I just wanted to say, I saw you in the trash and throw it away.
And let me show you something. It's gonna help, but
Detective asked why she's been telling all of these stories, and basically she says, she was trying to convince herself, is in summary of what she said.
and let me show you something. It's gonna help, but what is asking right now. This is a very small fraction of the mountain. What that looks like a hill is trash. And everything's so attractive right that is trash. You see how little those people are. Do you think that we could have found him if we didn't know that you put him in the dumpster and we knew exactly where that dumpster went? Yeah.
Did we hear her say the word theory at some point in there?
That's what she refers to it, yes.
What was the theory thing? What was she saying?
She's saying that every time that she lied to us was her sharing her latest theory.
In other words, she wasn't claiming that she was making factual statements about what happened. She was saying she was just kind of throwing out theories.
Yes.
She was describing was she describing the Oragel story as just a theory that she had proposed?
Yes.
And was she saying that she had only proposed it because, she had come to and found Oragel and was trying to figure out how?
Yeah, she said she found it in her vehicle, and that's the only thing that made sense to her.
This is, again, just my opinion, but Leilani using this verbiage of, these were just my theories, I think she picked that bullshit up from YouTube. That kind of stems from creators in the ear and watching panels and live streams and hearing what people were saying about her. And I don't know, it just seems like a very typical YouTube statement. This is my theory of what went down.
Figure out how.
Yeah, she said she found it in her vehicle, and that's the only thing that made sense to her.
And did she describe her story about throwing away trash as just a theory that she had come up with in response to Brad asking her whether she had thrown away trash?
Yes.
Now, I want to just ask you about a couple features of these prior stories that she's referring to as theories, okay?
Okay.
You talked to her on October 5th when she first launched the Origin story, right?
Yes, I did.
Did this story include who she had gotten it from?
Yes, it did.
Did it include where she had gotten it?
Yes.
Did it include when she had gotten it?
Yes.
Did it include why she had wanted it and obtained it?
Yes.
Did it include details such as how many tubes of Oragel she got and how many were open already and how many were unopened?
Yes.
The story about throwing away trash that she gave to Special Agent Snyder and Special Agent Solomon on October 12th, did that include such details as specifically what the trash was?
Yes, it did.
What it smelled like?
Yes.
How long it had been in the car?
Yes.
When she first registered the odor of the trash?
Yes.
What kind of trash bag it was?
Yes.
What color the ties on the trash bag were?
Yes, it was a very vivid story.
An admission to having looked inside the trash bag before throwing it away.
Yes, she said that.
An estimate of how much the trash bag weighed.
Yes.
And statement about the exact physical mechanics of how many hands she used to put it in the dumpster.
Yes.
You had either conducted those interviews.
So remember, her interview of her first theory about the Oragel and the trash bag and all that took place on October 5th, long before YouTubers were involved. But now, on November, what is this? 20 something? Now, on that date, she's claiming, oh, those were just my theories.
Yes.
You had either conducted those interviews or observed them prior to this interview, right?
Correct.
Did any of those things sound like mere theories to you at the time that she said them?
No, they did not.
Now, in this interview, particularly in the first bit we watched, the 20-minute bit, was she asked at some point by you, I think we can all agree that something did happen.
Yes.
And did she nod her head yes in response to that?
Yes, she did.
Was she asked?
Wait, what?
Yes.
And was she asked at some point by you, I think we can all agree that something did happen.
Yes.
And did she nod her head yes in response to that?
Yes, she did.
I'm relying heavily on this because that audio is so damn hard to hear. Yes, Wander. Danny did say he saw him that morning. However, they got out of him in his first set of interviews. I don't know which interview it was, but they were at with law enforcement for a very long time. What was it, 14 hours, Paul told us? And throughout those interviews, they got out of Danny like, no, he didn't actually see him. So that took place on day 1.
Yes.
And did she nod her head yes in response to that?
Yes, she did.
Was she asked, do you think you may have killed him or something to that effect?
Yes.
And is it the case that she was just not able to give an answer to that or just didn't really say anything?
That's correct.
Was she, at some point Did Special Agent Solomon say, "You harmed your child and hid him," or words to that effect?
Yes, she said that.
And is it fair to say that the defendant just did not affirmatively dispute that? She didn't say, "No, I didn't."
She did not.
And separately, did Special Agent Solomon say, "You hid him in the dumpster because you had harmed him in some way"?
She said that.
And did she also fail to dispute that statement?
Yes, she did.
One moment, please.
I don't think it's low, Bella, but I got my volume turned way up. So
No further questions, Your Honor.
Any thoughts?
I do, Judge, but I was going to say this might be a decent time for a little break in case it takes a minute.
The time now is 2:36. Let's just take a few minutes to shift. Let's make it about 10 minutes. That will be 2:46. All right. All right. We're in recess.
Jury is exiting.
she's probably at work, Wolfie. She works hard during the day.
Thank you, Smith. And with that, we're in recess. Thank you.
Guess what we get to do, guys? We get to zoom, as Emily D. Baker says. Right past that break, which legit was the shortest break Judge Stokes has ever taken in her life. I want it on record right here. This was an actual 10-minute break. Okay. Holy moly. You go live at night to test it. You just want to see tits.
Let the record reflect that attorneys are present. Ms. Simon is with both her counsel. And so, Mr. Hilliard, are you ready for cross-examination? Okay, is the state ready to proceed as well?
You're so
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, please bring in the jurors.
Jurors entering.
I forgot, but I will, Wolfie, I promise. Did y'all see this? That YouTube now has a sleep timer? Tater showed me this morning. I feel personally attacked by the fact that YouTube has put a sleep timer on their app, trying to get me healthy and to not listen to shit all night long while I'm sleeping. Okay, YouTube, I see you. See you.
It appears that everyone is not ready. So the jurors who are present, if you'll go back to the deliberation room, that's fine.
Oh no.
Is it working?
The, for once, the judge is ready, but the jurors aren't. My sleep timer is off. so rude of YouTube.
All right, excellent.
You know what I like? When you fall asleep, listen, like, I often fall asleep listening to my friends, like MJ or Ali or Jones or someone, like, because I'm exhausted and I'll fall asleep to them, and then I'll wake up to some beast talking about something crazy that has absolutely nothing to do with anything I follow, and I'm like, what the heck is going on here? That's how I found a couple of different creators that way, though.
Do y'all want to change order?
Yes.
I can tell that was going to be a thing. Everybody, please have a seat. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to move now to further testimony.
Some people might not know this, but in a lot of cases, the jurors aren't all in one room. A lot of times they're in 2 rooms. So when they bring them back into the courtroom, they bring 1 room at a time, and they probably follow a pattern of, room A goes first, so they're in the front row, room B goes second, so they're in the back row, and it sounds like they just kinda got out of order a little bit.
Okay. And no one discussed the case or did any research. All right. Thank you. Mr. Hilliard.
This is the first time I've really had a chance to speak to me, so I'm going to go way back to the beginning for that reason, okay? Give me 1 second. I picked up the wrong pad.
Loud and soothing doesn't really go together, does it? Kind of a opposite thing.
So,
Yeah, I'll check it.
so you arrived on scene at 10:30 on October 5th, correct?
No, after 12.
After 12? Okay. And how long were you on scene on October 5th?
On scene, probably about an hour.
All right. And at what point in time did you take Miss Simon, Mr. Youngkin, and Mr. Simon over to the precinct that day?
I asked one of the patrol officers and some of the detectives to have them transported probably within that hour.
So probably around 1 o'clock then, but just trying to get a general idea.
Yes,
So on October 5th, around 1 o'clock, all 3 of them went over to, I guess it's the police.
the
precinct?
headquarters?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And how long were they there on October 5th?
Until about 2 a.m. the following day.
So about 13 hours, right?
Yes, sir.
And over the course of the trial, we've seen a number of interviews during this time, correct?
Yes, sir.
And during that time, you were also speaking with, I'm going to assume, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, you're speaking with Miss Simon, Mr. Youngkin, and Mr. Simon, as well as others at the time, but those were the 3 main ones, right?
That our team spoke with, yes.
Yes. Okay. So that was 13 hours on the 5th to the 6th. When did you next speak with Miss Simon or have your team speak with Miss Simon?
We were in communication with her for probably the next 2 weeks, almost every day.
Every day? When you say ran communication, I guess that means phone calls?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And when was the next, I guess, in-person interview?
October 8th,
And how long was that one?
almost 2 hours.
And that was at CCPD as well?
No, that was at the FBI office.
All right. And 1 second, I'm running out of room here quickly. And when was the next one after that?
October 12th.
And how long was that one and where was that?
That was almost 2 hours as well, and that was at the FBI office.
And during this time frame too, this is the phone call? You still having phone calls during this 2-week time frame?
Yes, sir.
All right, so
He knows all this from his
13 hours on
discovery.
the 5th, 2 hours on the 8th, 2 hours on the 12th. When exactly was the hotel room video and audio?
What part of it?
The actual time they were in the hotel room when y'all were videotaping it.
The 8th and 9th.
That was October 8th to 9th, correct?
Yes, sir.
And during the same time frame, you were wiretapping Daniel Youngkin's phone from, I think, around the same time, October 8th or 9th, for about 60 days, right?
Yes.
Intercepting all of the phone traffic between him and her.
Yes.
And just, not that it matters, a rough estimate is even after you arrested Miss Simon, you still intercepted his phone calls between them, correct?
Yes.
So that was at least, generally speaking, between October 8th, 2022 to December 8th, 2022, correct?
Yes.
All right, so that's going on at the same time the other interviews are going on, right?
Yes.
So October 12th, I'm sorry, was the next in-person interview. When was the next interview that your team did of Miss Simon at that point?
After October 12th,
Mm-hmm.
October 31st.
All right. And how long was that one and where was that one?
That was at the FBI office, and I believe that one was also probably 2 hours.
2 hours.
What?
And the next one after that?
Soup is obviously watching ahead and decided that she gets to have the floor. Soup stole the stand, let us know that Billy Joe's gonna be for the defense. What the fuck? Is that legit? Or are you just guessing? That could be because the state didn't want to call her. Who knows? Oh my gosh. Well, the good part of this is that the defense will be on direct, so they will be limited with their questioning or how they can question Billy Joe, and Superman will be on cross, and so he can be more aggressive with his questions. That pisses me off. Okay, I'm gonna shut up and play this.
That.
Would be her final interview when she was arrested.
And what day was that?
That was on November 21st.
And that one was how long?
3 hours.
And so from October 5th to November 21st, were you still in constant contact with her?
The team was.
The team was. And by the team, you mean yourself, Agent Solomon, Agent Schneider.
Shocker,
anyone
another
like that.
lie, Melissa Jade.
Yes.
Another lie.
Now, and you said that on, I think it was November 21st, she expected to be arrested when she came in, correct?
Yes.
And you asked her to come in, correct?
Yes.
And she came in, correct?
Yes.
All right. Now, we've seen some of the excerpts here that you put up here today. Now, let me ask you this. What interrogation technique were we just witnessing on this particular video?
I don't have a name for the technique. We were having a conversation.
All right. Well, you said you don't have a name for it, but you've gone to the academy, correct?
Uh-huh.
And you were trained in interrogation techniques, correct?
Yes.
And what interrogation techniques were you trained in?
I don't have the name for the techniques. My way of doing it is just making sure I have the full story. And if I don't understand anything in somebody's story, I just keep asking questions until I do.
Okay. So in this particular technique, though, which you just witnessed, and we've seen the entire time, is it safe to say that you're putting individual stressors on the interview subject?
In which interview?
All of them.
It depends on what you would say is a stressor. We're talking about her dead child, but
Okay. Well, and that's my follow-up question. Wouldn't you think speaking about that would be a stressor?
yes,
Okay. And wouldn't you think that speaking about that would evoke an emotional response?
yes.
Sassy pants. I almost called him dumbass. But how are they supposed to elicit statements and testimony from Leilani about the situation if not by mentioning Quentin, her dead child? Sometimes I'm interested to see how he is on direct.
Okay. And you seem to have had opinions about that emotional response, but what have you been trained that is the appropriate emotional response? Do you have a level?
Can you restate your question?
I can. So if you are overly hysterical, then you're overly hysterical. If you are not hysterical enough, then you're not hysterical. How do you gauge the appropriate response level to your questioning for you to be satisfied? What's the right answer? What could ever be the right answer?
For what appropriate reaction she had?
Yes.
I'm basing that on previous interviews I've done with families that have lost their children.
Right. But every individual is different, are they not?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So in this particular case, a number of times, Mr. Dean has asked you a number of questions, and you said it wasn't emotional enough, or it was too emotional, hysterical. And how do you make that determination? What is the appropriate objective?
Let me make something perfectly clear before it spirals, because I know we're all of the same mindset over here. How the fuck is she watching in chats, actively watching the trial and testimony before she's called to the stand? Because we all know that's a no-no. But one thing I want to make clear is no one here is saying that anything needs to be done about that. None of us need to contact anyone. Nobody needs to go real life on that. I don't even know if something could be done about that, but I don't want any of us to feel like that even needs to be a thing, because we're just here to observe and watch it play out the way it plays out. So before that kind of spirals, because we know how shit is on these YouTube streets and how quickly stuff spirals. Nobody here is even suggesting or insinuating that that needs to be done. It's just something we're all questioning, because how in the hell is she out there watching this trial and then going to testify? It's a huge no-no. Huge no-no.
Standard by which you can judge that.
I believe I focused on the October 5th interview when she would do the screaming and yelling portion.
And that was when you made your decision, correct? October 5th?
Decision about what?
As to how and where you were going to focus your attention in this investigation.
Sorry, I need to get my dryer.
Okay. Then when did you decide that Ms. Simon wasn't your prime suspect?
She was our prime suspect, you mean?
No, I said, when did you decide that she wasn't? If you said you didn't do it on October 5th, okay, so you're saying she wasn't your prime suspect on October 5th?
No, we looked at all three of the adults in the residence as possible suspects.
Okay. So that being said, you looked at all three of the adults. Did you ever look outside of the residence as a possible suspect?
Yes.
Okay. And what did you do to pursue any of that?
Outside the residence? So we did a canvas, as we've previously talked about.
Right.
No leads came up with that of any suspicious persons around the residence. We set up the tip line that did not prove any other suspicious persons. We spoke with probably every single family member of this family in Savannah. None of those had any guesses on who it could be, including the 3 people that lived there.
And let me ask you this about your interviews with Ms. Simon. All of the interviews, she was free to walk away or not engage in those interviews, correct?
Until the final one.
The final one was a little bit different, correct? Because you already had one to that.
Yes.
Okay. So and even knowing that, she still came to that one, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, Mr. Dean asked you a question about whether or not she denied something, but not denying something is also not admitting something now, is it?
No.
They're not the same thing, are they?
No.
Okay. So, and my recollection was, I don't think she's ever, in any of the interviews, admitted to harming Quentin, has she?
No.
Now, in the last interview at that point in time, had you ever determined a manner or cause of death for Quentin Simon?
I have an opinion on how he died.
I didn't ask you your opinion. I'd asked you if you determined, has a doctor made a medical determination as to manner, method, or time of death?
No, due to the remains, we were unable to find that.
So that's no. Okay. And that being said, when you were interviewing Miss Simon on that last particular day, you focus on a lot of things that weren't said, but she never said that she killed Quentin, and she never said that she disposed of his remains, did she?
She said she did not remember.
Okay. Now, you said you have an opinion, but opinions are just that. They're not based, they're just your opinions, right? I have opinions, you have opinions. People have opinions, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And opinions are not evidence, are they?
No.
All the questions I got, Judge.
You know what is evidence? Opinions are not evidence, but do you know what is evidence? The lack of evidence is evidence. Think about that for a second.
No redirect, Your Honor.
State may call its next witness.
May we have a moment, please, Your Honor? Your Honor, subject to verifying that all of the evidence that we've offered has been formally introduced and admitted, the state rests this case.
State rests.
And so with that, jurors, I'm going to ask you to return to the deliberation room at this point.
Jurors are exiting.
She cannot say no. If the state were to have called her as a witness to testify, she can't tell them no. I mean, they could even subpoena her to testify. If they wanted her to testify, she would have been. I would think.
Jurors are clear, Your Honor.
Thank you, Deputy Smith. Everyone may have a seat. Okay.
The state just wanted to verify our
Yes.
exhibits, and we should have exhibits 1 through 94, and 94 is an A and B, in evidence with the exception of 83. Oh,
Microphone.
Sorry.
Yep,
What I
that's
was
what
saying
should
was we
be.
should have, the state should have exhibits 1 through 94, which is an A and B exhibit in evidence with the exception of state's exhibit 83,
So 1 through 94 A and B, but not 83.
not 83. We just wanted to verify.
The last person to testify for the state was Detective Lemons, who basically had the case from day one.
Thank you, thank you. Mr. Clerk? Madam Clerk. Okay, and that's what you show is in evidence.
Thank you
Okay.
very much, Your Honor.
Thank you, Ms. Parker. And then, is there any motion by the state? Excuse me, by the defense?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Purse?
Here, let me give Mr. First the microphone, Judge.
Just a moment before you begin, Mr. Purse.
Wise Angel, it just depends on the case, the state,
Your
the
Honor, at this
county,
time-
the judge.
I'm going to focus my argument as to a motion for directed verdict. Just so we're all on the same page, I'm focusing on counts 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I'm going to take them kind of in separate batches and then all together with my final thought.
All
With respect to counts 1, 2, and 3, that allege that Leilani Simon committed malice murder and felony murder of Quentin Simon, the defendant moves for a directed verdict of acquittal.
No, this is not a closing argument. This is the acquittal speech. Like Violet said, yes, this comes in every trial. The defense, after the case rests, the defense, almost every single trial, the defense will say, oh, they didn't meet their burden of proof. Because remember, the burden of proof lies on the state. It does not lie on the defendant. It lies on the state to prove the case. So after the state rests, defense steps up, asks for an acquittal, and 9.5 times out of 10, it's denied.
First, there's no direct evidence to support these claims. The state has presented theories and its conclusions, but has presented no direct evidence that Leilani Simon committed these crimes the way they're charged in counts 1, 2, and 3 in the indictment. I think the medical examiner's testimony is significant. She expressed no opinion about the manner of death, the cause of death, the time of death, and even as an expert in her field, couldn't even express an opinion that Quentin Simon died as a result of the commission of these crimes. That leaves us with circumstantial evidence. In Georgia, and I'm quoting Official Code of Georgia 24-14-6, quote, to warrant a conviction on circumstantial evidence, the proved facts shall not only be consistent with the hypothesis of guilt, but shall exclude every other reasonable hypothesis, save that of the guilt of the accused. With respect to the circumstantial evidence argument connected to the murder claims, again, the medical examiner testimony is extremely significant. because what it presents and what it leaves out raises lots of hypotheses as to what happened to Quentin Simon, and does not only establish the guilt of Leilani Simon as alleged in the first 3 counts of this indictment. With respect to count 4, that alleges concealing the death of another. Concealing a death is against the law in accordance with Official Code of Georgia 16-10-31, which provides that a person is guilty of this offense, and I'm paraphrasing the statute, when a person conceals the death of any other person and does so to hinder a discovery of whether or not such person was unlawfully killed. In this instance, the medical examiner's testimony again failed to establish that Quentin Simon's death was the result of any unlawful act. Basically, all 4 counts of this indictment, I should say, is grounded in a bunch of theories and the state's speculation and conclusions. With respect to that, in suggested pattern jury instruction 1.20.20, Georgia law provides that facts and circumstances that merely place upon the defendant a grave suspicion of the crime charged, or that merely raise a suspicion or conjecture of the defendant's guilt, are not sufficient to authorize a conviction of the defendant. At this point, the state's evidence is grounded in speculation and grave suspicion, but not on facts and not on evidence. On behalf of Leilani Simon, we move for a directed verdict of acquittal with respect to counts 1, 2, 3, and 4 of the indictment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Purse.
Yes, I do think that this would be considered a circumstantial case because they're asking the jury of Leilani's peers to deduce what they're not seeing. You've got Leilani making all these lies and claims surrounding this pivotal time frame. She shifted stories, added in narratives or theories, as she calls them, and then we have her phone, her vehicle driving to the dumpsters at this time of night. And Quentin was found only from following those dumpsters to the landfill and searching in that location. So they're asking you to find her guilty based on evidence you can't see, evidence that they can't prove. But when you compile it with the broader picture, the bigger picture, what's left? Who's left? So it is a circumstantial case.
All right, Mr. Dean.
Your Honor, I'll be brief. We've presented sufficient evidence for the jury to find, based on both circumstantial and direct evidence, that the defendant is guilty of all 4 of those counts. The Wyatt case is clear that when we allege that certain facts are unknown, such as manner of death or
Yes, sorry, I'm keep interrupting this because honestly, this part really isn't super important because we know what it's going to be. But the snow theory is that you go to bed and there's nothing on the ground except your grass, and you wake up and it's not snowing, but your neighborhood is blanketed in snow. Well, you can deduce that it snowed sometime in the middle of the night without having seen any proof of that, any factual evidence that it actively snowed in the middle of the night. It wasn't there in the morning or it wasn't there at night and it was there the next morning. That is essentially circumstantial evidence.
or certain other facts in the murder counts, that those become material allegations that we have to prove. And I think that Mr. Purse's understanding of the medical examiner's testimony is exactly backwards. It does not support a directed verdict on any of these counts. In fact, it was offered to prove the material allegation that certain facts are unknown, and it does that. We've said in the indictment that she killed them in a manner unknown to the grand jury, and that was the point of calling the medical examiner and say, I couldn't do an autopsy because of the condition of their remains. And so we've proven that. Circumstantial evidence does, a circumstantial case does have, the evidence does have to exclude all reasonable theories other than guilt. And we've done that by presenting affirmative evidence that there was no medical event, there was no accident. The defendant was asked repeatedly about that and denied it each time. And further, her actions after the fact were totally consistent with any type of accident. There are only so many ways to die, and we've excluded all of them, but in intentional act of violence that resulted in Quentin's death. And concealing the death, requires that you conceal the death of another such that it hinders, such that you hinder the investigation into whether the person was unlawfully killed. I don't know whether there's ever been a more straightforward body of evidence in support of a concealing the death charge. I could go on. I hope and doubt that the court needs me to, so I'll wrap it up with that, Your Honor.
All right, thank you very much. I am going to find that based on the argument made by the state, the court finds that there is sufficient evidence that has been presented for the jury for the charges in the indictment to be considered. So motion for directed verdict is denied. All right. Are there any other motions from the defense?
We probably need to engage in the colloquy at this point, Judge.
We do. So I'm going to ask Ms. Simon to come up to the witness stand. And before going to the witness stand, if you'll be sworn.
Raise your right hand. Please swear.
The evidence you shall give the court on the issue pending shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Ms. Simon, just have a seat on the witness stand, please.
Okay, so they're gonna ask her.
All right.
You want me to do it in Judge?
I'm going to start out with Ms. Simon. Ms. Simon, please state your full name.
Leilani Murray Simon.
Okay. And you're doing the right thing, just talking to the
Sorry, I wanted to pause and slow it back down for y'all.
microphone so the court reporter can get it. I think you've heard me give that instruction a couple of times.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Do you understand that you have a right to testify
Yes, ma'am.
and that if you want to testify, no one can prevent you
She's
from doing so?
Yes, ma'am.
she's not necessarily testifying, guys. This is her. Every defendant has the right to testify, and they have to be asked it by the judge, and then they have to. It's not the lawyers can't make her testify. Lawyers can't make her not testify. It is her right to decide, and so the judge will ask her directly and personally. That's what's happening right now.
And that if you want to testify, no one can prevent you from doing so?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you also understand that no one can make you testify? No one can compel you to testify. Do you understand that as well?
Yes, ma'am.
Right.
And
Not be held
you have the
against.
right not to testify if you don't want to. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Do you understand that not your lawyer, but you personally are the one who decides whether or not you will testify?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that if you do not testify, that upon proper request by you, the court will instruct the jury that your decision cannot be used against you?
Yes, ma'am.
In fact, the court will instruct if you decide not to testify. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do you understand that if you choose to testify, you will be examined by your counsel and cross-examined by the assistant district attorneys in AUSA?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Do you feel a need to have any additional time to consider whether or not you will testify?
I've been given plenty of time by my attorneys, notified weeks ago
All right.
about this.
Do you need any time to talk with him in private about this?
No, ma'am.
All right.
Why is she smiling?
And so do you personally wish to testify or not?
I do not.
And with that, I find that the defendant, Leilani Simon, has decided not to testify with a complete understanding of her rights.
Yes, ma'am.
Before you step off the stand, are there any further questions?
Just to follow up. Is anyone forcing you to not testify or to testify?
No, sir.
Your choice is made freely and voluntarily?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you have adequate time to speak with me and Mr. Person about your choice, correct?
Plenty of time.
Okay. Just have to make sure. All right. And that's all the questions I had, Judge.
All right. Ms. Simon, you may step down.
Thank you.
No, there was nothing found in the pack and play. Well, they did not testify to. They were unable to test the stain on the pillow, and the brain matter that was found in the frontal lobe of what was found at the landfill. There was no testimony on anything being found in the house or the car. I've never seen them, well, maybe one other time I've seen them go up to the stand like that. Typically, they just stand with their lawyers at the table. So I think that's kind of why it's throwing a bunch of you off who just, casually watch trials. She was not taking the stand. She was just deciding, or she has to tell the judge, this is just another thing that happens after the acquittal. Then the defendant is asked if they are going to testify or not. They don't have to let the judge know at that time.
Taking some time to speak with Ms. Simon in private at the table.
She can, she could have said that she wants more time to think about it. They can put on some of their case. They could, continue with witnesses while the defendant still thinks about it or whatnot. And I think she can even still change her mind. I'll have to look that one up. But that's all that was taking place. That's just that's just a part of the procedures that happen. Um, and the judge will also remind the jury that Leilani invoking her right not to testify should not be held against her in their decision-making process.
Taking some time to speak with Ms. Simon in private at the table.
I could just have a couple minutes. I want to go back
They
to
did test.
She had a couple of questions about what happens next. And I probably need a few minutes away from everybody who goes off.
Let's do that. It's about 10 till, I can't tell the time by that clock. It is 3:20. Okay, so let's step off until about 3:30 or so.
They did send the pack and play to testing. They sent it into testing. We had 3 separate detectives tell us that the pillow and the pack and play were sent in for testing. We did not hear anybody testify as to what, if anything, was found on the pack and play. So I'm just assuming that nothing was found on it, but we do know that it was sent to Quantico for testing. And now we're zooming. Why did people think Billy was testifying? What if anything? Yeah. No, the trial's not over.
So we're back on the
Defense's
record in
case
SPCR 22-03364J6. Ms. Simon is present with her counsel, counsel for the state is present as well as Detective Lemons. Is there anything that we need to take up before we bring the jury back in? Okay.
Is the plan then to bring the jury out and have the defense present?
Yes.
Send the jury home and talk about charges?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
That was so succinctly put. Thank you. Bring the jurors, please.
Oh, maybe we're almost done. I don't know what's going on. Oh, is that little fishies on his bow tie? Orville, I like your bow tie today. I bet you that's a Vineyard Vines bow tie right there. Or a Southern Marsh.
Jury room is clear, Your Honor.
Thank you, Deputy Smith.
Brain matter was found. It just was not found.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, please
At
have
the
a
house.
seat. There were no discussions about the case or research. All right, very well. Mr. Hilliard.
Yeah, the defense rests.
All right, thank you. And with that, lady.
Okay, so I don't know why someone thought Billy Joe was going to testify because the defense just rested. The defense just rested. What? What? Yeah, Soup said Billy Joe was going to testify. She must have got it wrong, but wait a second. Why are they resting? Why are they rest? Okay, let me go back a second. Why are they resting? They have no case?
Yeah, the defense rests.
All right, thank you. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to release you for the evening. There are some legal matters that we need to take up outside of the presence of the jury. I'm going to have you come back tomorrow at 10 o'clock a.m. Please continue to follow the court's instructions. Do not discuss the case. Don't let anyone discuss the case with you. Don't watch television shows. Do not do any separate research. Okay. All right. Very well. Thank you very much.
Jurors exiting.
Yeah. Soup, we're gonna need you on. Like, why'd you think Billy Joe was testifying? I'm glad we got punked on that one, but still, like, what the heck is going on with the resting? Their defense was to argue the state, like, that was it? That was it. No character witnesses, nothing? Nothing. I'm flabbergasted, y'all. Can you hear it in my voice? Like, what the hell is happening here?
Please have a seat. Thank you. Thank you, Smith. Okay. So I've received, of course, the request to charge from the state and from the defense. I've had an opportunity to review both sets, and do we have a copy? Okay. So I'll have a proposed set for you to take a look at. We can go through those and see where we stand. I'm having the jurors return tomorrow at 10 o'clock, just in case we needed to take up anything earlier than that. I expect us to begin at 9 o'clock. And it may very well be, there are a couple of the counts we had some issue with in coming up with what the charge should be. And so that may take some thought. I certainly would like to hear what you have to say. Let's get those requests to charge to you in just a minute or two, and then we can go through one by one. All right, with that, we're in brief recess.
Okay, so they're gonna come back here, I guess. We'll zoom ahead. Okay, now we're live. Okay, so the defense has rested their case, meaning the defense has decided to not put on a case, meaning they are not calling any witnesses. They are not, I mean, that's it. They're not calling any witnesses. They're not presenting any alternate theories. Of course, they've kind of done that in their cross this entire time. They have, you know, kind of makes Mr. Sassy Pants' cross a little, understand them a little bit better, but hang on one second. I need to turn on this light. So they've decided that they're not going to be bringing any alternate theories to the table. They're not calling any experts. They're not doing shit. They're done. They're like, that was good enough. We out. Like, for some of my trial watchers in here, what do you think that would mean for appeals? Resting without presenting any case. Yeah, they don't have to do anything. I'm just stunned. I'm just truly just stunned that even though they don't have to, like, typically you'd see something like a character witness or an expert, an alternate, even just an alternate expert stating, yeah, there's no definitive way of knowing how he, what his cause of death was. There's no definitive way of determining this or that. There's no way to determine if he truly was placed in the dumpster from this time or that time. Like, I'm just shocked that they called nothing. Nothing. They have no alibi, and the state already debunked all the so-called witnesses Leilani provided with their lies. I know. Well, I don't think it would make it harder. I'm wondering if it would make it easier for an appeal. I know, I've never seen this in a trial before either, where the defense doesn't present something. That's what I'm saying, like, an expert to testify on the effects of drugs, right? Because in that last video, she's, ranting that, she lost these blocks of time. I'm sure they could have found some expert out there in the world that would have supported that theory. Come on. They could have found someone though, Remy. And that's why I'm wondering if it's gonna give her bolster some sort of, uh, appeal process or something. Right, you couldn't find one person, to use as a character witness for her? Like, even a 3rd grade classmate who hasn't seen her in 30 years, like, not one. Anyone? Oh, that's what I'm wondering, Kit Kat, like, is this gonna be beneficial to the appeal process, for ineffective counsel? You have? You're gonna have to tell me what cases, like, I just have not seen this. Especially such a big trial. Especially a big trial. There's some smaller ones I've seen it, but yeah, a big one like this. Oh, you're worried about it, Jonesy? I had thought about going down to Savannah for trial watch, but now I don't think I can. So if they are resting today, tomorrow morning will be opening statements, and I will not be live tomorrow, but you guys, Gavel has agreed to step in and stream it for us tomorrow. Um, Crouton needed a Nana day, and he comes first and foremost. So as soon as that was asked, doesn't matter what I'm doing, he's getting a Nana day. So Gavel will be streaming tomorrow for everyone. So they'll do the closing statements and the jury will start deliberations, and if they do closing statements early in the morning, I mean, we could have a verdict back tomorrow night. Which I would, if I'm not with crew, I will pop in and do something with the verdict, but I had thought about going down to Savannah, but another way I can't, like, especially with them ending this quickly, I thought for sure they'd go till Monday, is Marshall will be boots on the ground Sunday evening. So we are headed to his base to welcome his plane in and, all the hoopla and fanfare that we have when they come home from deployment. So that's another reason I won't go with them ending this early. Like, holy moly, this is crazy. Allie doesn't think it will help her on appeal. They fought pretty hard. I can't see her making an ineffective counsel argument. But he did fight very hard. They did, but he did do a good job fighting. Yes, Gavel will be streaming this. I guess, closing arguments tomorrow. Yeah, they will try to make their argument there. It's kind of circumstantial evidence, and it absolutely, no kinda, Mo, you're right. It absolutely is circumstantial evidence that he ended up in the same spot that a truck dumped trash from a dumpster that she's on camera throwing something away in. But it still is circumstantial. I I have faith in this jury. I truly do. I think we're gonna have a guilty verdict. Yep. When Nana's called, Nana goes. Oh my gosh, I got a call at like 1 in the morning from Morgan the other night. She's like, "Your grandson won't sleep. I'm so tired. He just woke up crying." So we live about 10 minutes away now, and I get 5 minutes. Like 5 more minutes later, she called me back. She's like, okay, he went down. I'm good. I'm like, don't worry, Pumpkin. We have all been that frustrated mama. We have all been there where we feel like, oh no, nothing I try is working. And I said, sometimes just the threat of calling Nana does the trick. And it did. It did. Why am I yawning? I'm not tired. You think it'll be Friday, last minute? Could be. I don't think they're gonna wanna go over the weekend with the verdict. I don't think that at all. Me too, Cammy. I'm so excited to have him boots on the ground. I could talk a little no, I shouldn't. He did a couple, 3 extra missions while he was deployed going to different locations, and we weren't allowed to know about him at the time, like, where he was, and in fact, he turned his GPS off for, like, a week and a half because he has to, when he does these little side missions, and I was so nervous. I was, like, checking it every day, like, "Just pop back up on GPS, just pop back up." But, and they were in some sketchy territory, but he's fine, and he got to go and see some really exciting new places that he'd never been to, and he's bragging because he's officially passed me and Luke in countries visited now, and so he was bragging about that, but I am so excited to hug his neck. Thank you, Center. Yes, let me drop it again. Tomorrow, Gavel will be going over closing arguments. I've gone over safe haven laws before, Graham, but I can do that again. Yes. You're nervous? You're nervous. Hang on, I'll pull up her charges, y'all. Let me get to the bottom of the comments. I'm not tired though. It's just a compulsory thing. Again, I think they have proof she killed him. The proof is not in, again, remember, it's not in the evidence you see, it's in the evidence you don't see, and that is circumstantial evidence. That is the lies. That is the motive, means, and opportunity. That is, you know, she's sitting here saying that, sending to this detective or FBI agent that Danny made her come up with this Orgel story, but then when she's being recorded in private, she's trying to convince Danny of the Orgel story. That's her changing why she went to the dumpsters as many times as she
And I have
did.
a stack of jury charges of what I need.
In the evidence we don't
Okay.
see. My kids are my life, Zen. My life. And my grandbaby. I will make sure to thank him for his service. And I'm excited to see some of his Air Force buddies as well. We'll become a great
And we
family.
need Miss Simon.
His whole crew. Man's here. My goodness, we could cancel our ADT. We got Archer. He'll let us know if a leaf floats by. Oh, but it was the mailman. I don't know if you guys heard him just barking like crazy. Oh, yeah, they're not calling anyone, MJ. They're done. The defense has rested. They took Leilani up to the stand to ask her if she was going to testify. She declined. And then the defense rested, and now we're getting ready to go over some of the motions. tomorrow is going to be a crew and Nana day, so you all can go watch at Gavel's. Gavel will be hosting you for closing arguments. And I suspect we'll have a verdict by the end of the day Friday for sure. I don't think this jury's going to want to go over the weekend. Don't worry, Soup. We got to it eventually. Don't worry at all. I was just flabbergasted that holy hell she's gonna like why would she testify after saying she wasn't? But I'm glad it was just a misunderstanding because that would have, I think, infuriated a lot of people. Archer that counter surfing no oh, I sent some of my friends that I talked to offline here. Archer got in
Charges
trouble
are
big time
listed, I'm
yesterday.
put together now, pages 1
Stinker.
through 22. And let's just go in order. Page 2, we have the charge regarding the indictment issued and plea of not guilty, presumption of innocence, burden of proof, reasonable doubt. All of that is
Super.
pretty standard. Is there anything with any of those?
I've seen you make some questionable statements, but I like the way you did. I like the way you worded this. I truly do. You're sorry for Quentin's father and his family. You're also sorry to Danny. As for Leilani's family, I could care less. I think you meant I couldn't care less, and I hope they live a life they deserve. That's probably the best way that we can put that. It's the best way we can put that, right?
Those. Okay, all right. Grave suspicion.
Does the court want objections or concerns as we go through, or do you want us to hold them to the end?
No, let's go, let's take the objections as we go.
I would object to grave suspicion. As the court knows, the pattern charges, I don't even know why it's still in there, because the pattern charge says, hey, this is totally unnecessary in light of how detailed and comprehensive presumption of innocence and burden of proof are. And that's supported by a number of cases, but as recent as a 2022 case from the Georgia Supreme Court. At their core, jury instructions are supposed to clarify and illuminate. And I think when that charge immediately follows presumption and burden, I just think it's totally confusing. I hate it. I have a visceral hatred for the grave suspicion charge, and we would ask the court not to give it. One thing that's nice about these cases is they make it pretty clear that it apparently can just never be an abuse of discretion not to. That's our position.
So, Mr. Dean, I ran through the first charges, came to grave suspicion and stopped because I imagine that you would have a problem with that one. Mr. Hilliard, Mr. Purse.
I think grave suspicion is at the core of this case.
I guess
And I don't think, excuse me for interrupting.
Mhm.
I don't think it's error for you to give that charge since it isn't about instructions.
I don't believe it's error. I'm going to take a look at that again, but
Mr. Redenbacher getting a little sassy. He's got his finger binds tie on a little tight today. Okay. Look at her face right there. She was like, really? Oh, really?
And
And so you
I don't
wish
think excuse me for interrupting.
Mhm.
I don't think it's error for you to give that charge since it isn't about instructions.
I don't believe it's error. I'm going to take a look at that again, but my thought is to leave it out, but okay. Put a little star by that one. Jury judges the facts,
Wow. Yep.
evidence,
Thank you.
direct and circumstantial evidence, credibility of witnesses, expert witness. Okay, witness attack.
I don't know about Steve Bannon, but the rest of them were all found guilty, right? And they didn't present a defense. I guess it would depend on Robert had multiple trials, didn't he? But still, or am I thinking of a different guy? Were they all found guilty? I guess it would be my question. I'll look that up while we listen.
Expert witness. Okay, witness attacked. Page 6. Is there any issue with this charge?
He was acquitted.
We were talking about this, Judge, prior to it. I don't have a problem withdrawing it. I think we requested it. And I think it just would honestly create more confusion than it would solve. So my last trial, we had an issue with it, trying to tailor it, and we got it tailored, and I won. But I think in this particular case, it's one of those unnecessary charges.
Mr. Dean, I'm gonna mark it withdrawn.
Yeah, for what it's worth, I agree, Your Honor, and I also agree as to, I would make the same case as to witness supported. I just don't think we had that kind of thing going on with any of these witnesses.
I would agree, Judge. If the attack is coming out, the support doesn't come out too. So.
Okay, so witness supported is withdrawn as well as witness attacked. Witness impeached.
I think that stays in it.
Agreed.
Prior statements.
I mean, I would like it taken out, but if you ask me to enumerate a reason for it, I can't other than my visceral hatred.
Yes, okay. So a lot of visceral hate going on here today. Okay, so prior statements remains immunity.
Judge Stokes is calling it out. She's like, she's had enough. She's like, there's a lot of visceral hate happening here. There's a lot of hostility in the room. Can we chill the crap out?
Visceral hate going on here today. Okay, so prior statements remains immunity or leniency granted. We did have.
Tell us how
immunity
you really
granted.
feel.
We did, but he asked like 3 questions and answered 3 questions, and it never came up. So I don't have an issue withdrawing it, Judge. I don't see how it's a factor.
Withdrawn.
The
Single witness corroboration.
Big Red's testimony was 3 questions and 3 answers. And it sounds like they probably didn't cross him. So I wonder if I think his text probably have a bigger impact on the jury than his testimony did. That's really frustrating about all the hoopla.
Withdrawn. Single witness corroboration. Defendant's choice not to testify. Statements of defendant. Okay. There was some tailoring, I think. Circumstances of the statements of the defendant, voluntariness defined. Those would remain. Circumstances of the statements, etc. Any issue there?
Not from the defense, Judge.
Okay. Burden of proof as to voluntariness. Okay. Statement of defendant made on November 21, 2022.
Just for the record, to make the distinction, because some people later on may not see the distinction. My understanding was all of the previous statements were voluntarily made.
Right.
The November 21st statement was a custodial statement, which is why the Jackson Dennis and other voluntary questions have to be proven.
Right. Thank you, Mr.
I mean, just for clarification, with the parties like for on page 8, for it to say something like statements of defendant prior to November 21st, 2022. I mean, I just think maybe some clarification or some other language in here just to clarify for the jury that everything with voluntariness is included in addition to the additional stuff that comes after the statement for November 21st, 2022, with like the constitutional custodial issues.
To me, I think page 8 looks good.
Okay.
Because the jury does have to find voluntariness for all the statements.
Right.
I think the only suggestion I would make is on page 9, when you get the statement of defendant made on November 21. I think the bit on lines 4 and 5 where it says if the statement was given in custody, I think the if part is weird there to me when we're both agreeing that it was given in custody, makes it a little confusing.
So
I think
is your suggestion is to take that,
Take that.
that in the,
take that,
out,
take that,
if the statement was given in custody, just take it out.
just take that out and say, maybe, the, give me one moment, please, sorry.
You must determine whether the defendant's statement was voluntary and whether the defendant was properly advised of her constitutional rights.
Yes,
I mean, because that's what the pattern,
yes.
suggested pattern charges say, is that voluntary and then the constitutional rights.
Right, this is exactly what I was suggesting, this is like exactly what I contemplated in the requested instructions.
So I'll just remove that, if the statement was given.
Yes, you're absolutely correct. Okay, so yes, so maybe that's where Soup's wires got crossed, is that Billy Joe will be giving a statement during sentencing, plans on doing a statement during sentencing, either as a character witness or a victim impact statement. That is entirely possible. I wouldn't necessarily call that testifying, but if it was said somewhere else as testifying, I can see where Soup got that mixed up. So thank you guys for clearing that up. What they're doing right here, Allie, is they are preparing to go over jury instructions. Yep, kind of like what Grandma Sherry says. They got to go through everything that she's being charged with, things that they want to instruct the jury to disregard or take into special consideration and whatnot. This is the whole process we're going through now. I was going to say something else too, and I forgot. Oh, Allie, yes, you're right. I need to clip that and put that in my Chroma Lives. There's a lot of hostility here. Whatever it was she said, it was hilarious.
So I'll just remove that, if the statement was given in custody, since this is specifically directed towards the November 21st.
Right.
Statement.
I don't have an issue with the custodial statement then.
Okay,
So we all agree with that.
all right, moving on to constitutional rights.
The Altoids with that
Denise,
one.
I mean, the if part at the outset is that's sort of like the same deal as the last part. You know, maybe it should say because the allegedly, you know, because the alleged November 21, 2022 statement was made while in custody as a result of police questioning.
Simpler, how about if the statement was made while in custody?
Miss Parker, if you'll just bend that
That's even better.
microphone.
To simplify that, how about if the statement was made while in custody? Since we're not really asking them to find whether it was or not.
Visceral hate, that's what it was.
Yeah,
I love
I'm not
that.
asking them to, but yeah.
Oh, that was nice of him.
That's the only one.
Make sure you guys go hit the
Just
like
that
on whatever he said. I'll do that later too.
Moving to page 10, defendant initiating further conversation. Okay.
I don't think that this instruction should be given
Yeah.
because nothing was introduced in evidence about any such invocation. I mean, some of those earlier interviews did end with invocations of the various rights, or you know, court found that they were legally ineffectual prior to.
Listen, I can be fair. Leilani's eating jail food. You know, she's learning how to make a Flacco's tacos out of ramen. So, ooh, my lawyer brought a pack of mints. She's gonna eat that whole dang thing. You know, there's so many weird like prison foods you can make. Like, there's some crazy YouTube videos on it out there. Don't ask me how I know.
Rights, or you know, court found that they were legally ineffectual prior to trial and all that. Those are all redacted at the request of the defense, which I had no problem with doing. But because none of it came up, I think the instruction is just inapplicable to this case at this point.
And I tend to agree, given the redactions and the pretrial ruling judge, we didn't really get into any of that.
Okay. So defendant initiating further conversation, that charge is withdrawn or removed. Burden of proof as to rights. Okay. Conditions precedent to consideration of statement. Okay. Prior difficulties.
On the conditions conditions precedent to consideration of statement.
Mhm.
There's that bit in there about the rights warning being a condition precedent. As we've been talking about, that only applies to the November 21st interview. So I don't know, I can't think off the top of my head exactly how to tailor that, but maybe it says something like, if you find, as mentioned above, that the defendant's statements
On
were
November
voluntary,
21st.
comma, and that all of the warnings as to the defendant's rights were given as to the November 21st interview or November 21st statements.
I think it has to be something.
There's got to be some way to. Okay, yeah, okay, that's good.
Okay,
That
what's
all the
that?
warnings as to the defendant's constitutional rights were given if required. Because I think it'll be pretty clear at this point when it's required.
Are you okay with that, Mr. Hilliard?
I am, Judge. I mean, we're speaking of the November 21st statement, and I think that we all
What
agree
third
that
option do I
as
need?
long as we find some way to
MJ?
tailor them, because we don't want to confuse them. So.
That is the most important thing.
And then that same point would apply to the top. page
Oh,
of the-
hung jury.
If you
Okay,
fail to
let me do
find
that.
that the defendant was properly informed of her rights where required.
Okay. All right. We'll make those changes. Moving then to the next charge, prior difficulties between parties.
No issue with that, Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. Hilliard?
I would object to that, Judge. If I'm going to, I mean, it wasn't really a prior difficulty. It comes back to whether or not. I mean, I just don't see the prior difficulty. Prior difficulty is usually between some sort of incident between the two subjects. I just don't. That charge isn't made for that. So I would object to that being included.
I think
There we go.
the difficulty here goes back to what we talked about earlier. There were witnesses that testified about what they observed as the interactions between the defendant and Quentin. And this does take some tailoring. Mr. Bean?
I think that charge has to be in here. I think definitely, I mean, typically it comes up more in like adult domestic violence cases, but it comes up in child abuse cases all the time. I think definitionally, the incidents that Talia McCarta and some other people related, they just are prior difficulties under the law. And I think I worry about error if this charge is not included.
I'm going to include the charge. Okay, identification, burden of proof. I don't think there is an issue with this one. DNA. Any issue with that?
No.
No issue, Your Honor.
All right, definition of crime, intent. No presumption of criminal intent. Presumptions and inferences. Okay, we are party to a crime here.
There is, I'm sorry to, I hate to bring it up at the risk of sounding pedantic, but on 13, there's a typographical error in the bolded language presumption.
I'll change it.
Inferences. Okay.
Not interferences.
The old spell check got you there.
And I read it as inferences, even though I looked at it. Yeah.
And there are some references when they reference the defendant, there's a he and a his.
Yes.
Yes.
I will make sure that the pronouns are correct.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
She said it doesn't really matter whether it says his or her, you know, the general stuff.
Okay, anything else? Up to, okay, we're now on parties to crime.
Yeah, I had a question on this one.
I think Mr. Hilliard is yours.
This was requested by the state.
Okay,
Yeah, I don't think so.
Evidence of that.
no.
I think the evidence of number one, number two. I don't think it's
I'm not gonna say it.
Let me hear from the state.
I'd like for it to stay in.
Party to crime.
Yes.
Why?
I don't think I've ever had a case where it wasn't given, and it allows for people. It allows for people who think, you know, perhaps somebody else was involved in some capacity. What does that mean for us with this defendant? I like it.
Let me take a look at that. Go ahead, Mr. D.
No one else is charged. The state's entire theory has been that my client did this alone. And so it's just completely improper at this point. There's no fact, there's no evidence, there's no theory in the case that points to and point to a crime. So we object to it.
All right.
To me, it's just a fundamental instruction that's given in every case that addresses what does it mean, what is required to be criminally liable for something in the state of Georgia. I don't know that it's one of those instructions that has to be explicitly raised by anything somebody said or argued.
I'll take it under advisement.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Guilt by mere presence. Mr. Hilliard. Mr. Dean, any problem here?
I'll wait to hear from Mr. Hilliard.
Oh, I don't have any objection to it.
Okay.
Neither do I.
All right. Guilt by mere association.
Same, I don't have any objection to
Okay. Venue.
it. I think that's a pattern charge.
It is a pattern charge. Malice murder. Malice motive. Okay, felony murder. That's one that we want to make sure, I want to make sure is correct. Felony murder, causation in felony murder. Actually, that's essentially the pattern. The felony murder.
These are from the latest, newest.
Right.
charges. Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
that wasn't it. The aggravated assault with an offensive weapon. So let me go back. Felony murder, once I read it, I had a circle for some reason. It's a pattern, causation, and felony murder. Any issues with that?
Felony
Okay.
murder, no objection.
Concealing death, simple assault generally.
I think the simple assault has to be.
Yeah, it's by way of explanation. The aggravated assault with an offensive weapon.
The only suggestion I might make as to that charge is I think we've got it indicted as object that actually did cause and not was likely to cause. And if that is the case, then I might ask that likely to cause language come out of the last line.
Okay.
I mean, that's not like necessary that it be taken out because that is the definition, but to further tailor it. Am I right about the indictment?
The
You are right.
indictment,
It is charged as did result in serious bodily injury.
yes.
So you would like for it to say, that it actually does cause and just remove the other.
Yes.
Mr. Hilliard,
He wants it to say actually does cause versus likely to cause.
an offensive weapon is any object that does cause, right?
Or just say causes, I guess,
Causes.
since we're taking that out.
Causes or actually does cause.
And not just object that causes.
Why don't we do that?
Object that causes. I think that's good.
All right,
I don't have any great objection to that.
okay.
I mean, I think it's at the risk of being pedantic, I'm not going to object to the language.
All right, determining if weapon is offensive,
I
that
do.
charge.
And this one's called straight to pattern.
Okay, cruelty to children in the first degree, that's also
I
statute.
think they proved it.
Any issue with cruelty to children in the first degree? Okay. Voluntary intoxication, not a defense.
I do want to talk on this though. Like, so Nanya says, I think that she, and she's meaning Billy Joe, is looking for a soft spot for people to have compassion. She loved her kid, and I can't imagine having to live through the guilt of this kind of situation. Here's the thing, watching this whole trial, all the feelings that you have towards everybody surrounding the situation, no matter what they are, they're valid. But what we get to do is decide how we present them to the world. You know, do we come at it with hate, anger, accusing her of stuff, just being, completely disgusting to her? Or do we come at it from a place of compassion, empathy, or do we even just come at it from a place of indifference, which is where I choose to sit right now? I'm just completely indifferent to it because I couldn't imagine myself in that position. I don't think I'll ever have to, and I pray to God that I won't. So that's kind of where I sit with that, if it makes sense.
defense.
May I, cruelty to children in the first degree, may I ask that item 2, cruel and excessive, read as cruel or excessive? I know it's charged in the conjunctive as cruel and excessive, because that's how we have to charge, but in terms of what we actually have to prove, it's not necessarily both, it's one or the other. So I'd ask that be an order.
Thank you, Mr. Hilliard.
I would leave the language the way it is in the indictment. I think it's indicted as cruel and excessive. I don't have any problem with it, but
It is indicted that way, but.
And that's
if we don't
perfectly
change that to
okay.
or, and I have to ask for
Perfectly
totally
okay.
separate instruction that the whole like and means or instruction, then I'd rather not do that. Because I think that's like the only place in this indictment where we've got a conjunctive that we might want them to read as disjunctive, and I don't think that it's. I'd rather not ask for the whole separate instruction that hey, the response where certain crimes can be committed in more than one way, and the state need only prove one, even if they've alleged more than one. And that whole deal. I'd rather just change this and to or and be done with it.
The case law forces us to charge with an and rather than an or, but the case law also says that if we only prove one, the other is surplusage. And the simplest way not to have to explain that to the jury is just to make it an or.
Do you hear anything further?
I just think if you don't stick to what the language in the indictment is, it's going to create an issue back there in the jury room. That's my humble opinion, Judge.
My inclination at this point is to have number 2 read cruel or excessive, but I'll take another look at it. But that's my inclination. Moving on then to voluntary intoxication, not a defense.
I don't think I requested that. So, I mean, I would object to it because I don't think it was raised as a defense. But it's mine, I withdraw it. But
I believe.
I don't think it would be the
It's
state. Bakwa.
I requested it because
Well, I'm wrong, Bakwa.
no
Sorry.
jury instruction has ever been raised by the evidence more prominently than that instruction has been raised in this case. It's an accurate statement of the law, and the jury absolutely must hear that principle of law in this case.
I apologize.
I'm going to include it. False report, we'll make the changes there. He, she will make those pedantic changes. All right.
It does say, it says misdemeanor in there,
Oh,
Which one? Oh, I see it.
and I don't think the juries to know the distinction with respect to punishment.
okay.
I'd suggest making that false report of a crime is when a person blah, 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 and then take off the guilty of a misdemeanor part.
That makes
Yeah.
sense.
I agree with that, MJ, completely.
Yep.
For those just listening, MJ said it's not my place to go at her, but Billy Joe has culpability, and she will have to live with this for the rest of her life. But Leilani is accountable, or should be held accountable, for taking Quentin's life. And Billy Joe failing to prevent it. And I think that's where that lies, is why I think a lot of us struggle with that. And that doesn't mean we have to be nasty to her, but struggling with the fact that she failed to prevent it. And we know this now, having listened to the entire trial, that this guardianship was just their way of skirting around CPS involvement, their way of CPS taking the kids from Leilani. And it sounds like that's exactly what CPS needed to do. And it wasn't put into full effect. And that absolutely can't be thrown out the window. It is a part of this, whether we like it or not, whether we believe the lies that were told to us before this went to trial, which I myself did. It doesn't matter. We've since learned throughout this trial that they did that to get around CPS involvement. And look at where we are. That's just the facts.
Okay, so that charge goes in without the last phrase, is guilty of a misdemeanor. That comes out. Okay, making a false statement. Verdict generally,
I agree, Pearl.
unanimous verdict form. Court has no interest in case. Sympathy, responsibility for sentencing. Deliberations, jury use of technology, retired to jury room. So going back through, page 3, grave suspicion, Mr. Hilliard would like that to remain. And I'm inclined to allow it to remain, maybe because there's not error, although I agree with you, it's not necessary. Witness attacked on page 6, as well as witness supported on page 6 have been withdrawn. Page 7, immunity or leniency granted witness, that will not be given. Page 8, statements of defendant, that on page 8, really page 9, will be adjusted to reflect the difference between November 21st statement being in custody and the other statements were not in custody. Constitutional rights. We made a change there, did we not?
We did.
Okay.
If the statement was made while in custody, maybe you find that out.
Defendant initiating further conversations, that will not be given. Conditions proceeding to consideration of statement will reflect only as to the November 21st, 2024 statement. Prior difficulties.
I agree, Johnson. That's another lie we were told. We were told that, Billy Joe had it set up for the kids to stay with the babysitter while she was out of town. Yet we have learned that that was not always the case. That yes, there were times that they were, most of the time they were with the babysitter, but there were a few times that, there was an argument between them where Billy Joe wanted to put more on her as a mom, but that was going outside of the kinship agreement. And I just keep like Leilani's words when she's sitting there giving that interview just ring over my head, her saying that was just on paper. We never followed any of like that was just on paper. It was just on paper. It meant nothing to them. It was just their workaround through CPS.
Will be given over objection. Page 13, inferences will be corrected in terms of the spelling. Page 14, parties to a crime or parties to crime. The state very much wants that there. The defense does not want that there. Want it given. I'm going to take a look at that.
Allow me to revise my position. I don't very much want it there. I just.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Dean. So, parties to crime will not be given. And then aggravated assault with an offensive weapon.
Which page are you on?
I'm sorry, page 18. Will be, the last line, I believe, is changed to an offensive weapon is any object that causes death or serious bodily injury if used against someone. Also on page 18, cruelty to children in the first degree. The number 2 enumeration is going to be cruel or excessive. Otherwise, it remains the same. Voluntary intoxication will be given over objection. False report of a crime, also on page 19, will be given except the last part of that charge is guilty of a misdemeanor will be eliminated. And everything else, I believe, is pattern.
Can I ask a sort of a mechanical question?
Yeah.
When these charges are actually given to the jury, and assuming we have objections to make, I mean, according to statute, we both get an opportunity to state on the record if we have any objection. Is the written charge that you actually give going to be part of the trial record?
Yes. And I plan for the written charge to go out with the jury.
The only reason I ask is I assumed it would be part of the record, but I wasn't sure, because if it comes up on appeal, I think you gotta have the charge that was actually given, where you can reference, here's where it looks at. Here's where you can find it to see what we're talking about.
Anything else regarding the jury instructions?
Only one thing that I just noticed, Your Honor, and I could be misreading this, but on the bottom of page 19, making a false statement, I've tried to like diagram this sentence, and it appears to me it may not be a complete sentence, and I think it's probably because it was drafted from the statute, but I think it needs to say at the end something like commits the offense of making a false statement, or in the alternative, at the front end, it should say a person commits the offense of making a false statement when she knowingly and willfully.
That last construction makes sense to me.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
It's
fine.
more clear.
Okay, thank you for that note. Is there anything else that you're finding here in the jury instructions? And of course, take a look at it. If anything else comes up, we can make change. We can discuss it and make changes as needed. But we're gonna have the jury charges. We believe it's gonna go out ready to go and email you a copy for your review.
Can we get a copy tonight, maybe, Judge? And just, if we have any issues, just show up at 9:30 in the morning and deal with it then, if that's okay?
Did you just change the time?
No, I'll show up at 9:30. The jury's still back at 10.
No, we'll do 9 o'clock just in
Oh,
case.
okay.
You must have missed her saying 9 earlier.
My wife at the airport, so I'm going to be here at 6. So it doesn't really matter to me. But I think if we have it tonight.
Yeah.
We don't
definitely
need
tonight.
your
If
life
there's anything
details,
that we need to attend to, we
Sassy
can.
Pants.
Okay.
Works for me.
Okay. Is there anything else tonight?
Where's your wife going? To the
We're
Bahamas?
recessing until 9 o'clock tomorrow.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you. Everybody have a good night.
I would need a vacay too. You guys are making a lot of great points in the chat I want to touch on. There were a lot of inconsistencies from what we were told online by people directly involved in this case. I'm not saying like channels, creators put them out there, but the mouths that we heard speaking directly for the family put out there online that we have found out to not be true. One of them is this specific claim of, Leilani called her and begged her to take the kids home. And BJ kept telling her no until she finally caved. None of that ever came out, but there was a lot of other stuff that did. There was, we were also told that Billy Joe paid for the babysitting, but we have since found out that's not true. And that doesn't come through just one testimony. That comes from Danny, that comes from Cash Apps and PayPals through Leilani, and that comes from the babysitter's mouth. So it was them paying for babysitter. There's just a lot of little narratives that we were fed. And like I said, this just makes me think a little differently going forward. This is the first case that I have followed from day one, from the event, from the time he went missing to the trial, and it's going to make me approach things even a little differently than I currently do. And I think that's all we can do is learn from the things that we see and do online. I got a little palette cleanser for you all. Would you like to see the cutest pumpkin in the patch? Nobody. Oh, you think that see, but Wolfie, some of the people don't think that the poll is crazy because some people are worried that she's going to be found not guilty. Circumstantial evidence is hard, and it could go any way. Any trial could go any way, but especially circumstantial and no body trial. Yeah, it could go either way. I understand the fear. I just feel like the state did a really good job. They had a great timeline. They articulated it well. They used their cross and their recrosses very well. I have faith that it's gonna be a guilty. Right, it's not our soul up for question, so and there's a lot. Um I don't know if she was a saint. She did come across as very self-serving, and I will still say this, the babysitter had a lot of contradicting statements from her own mouth on social media at the time. But that goes back to us that as creators or as subscribers of as ingesters of the stuff being said and done online, we never know what's truly going to matter in court. So the fact that she had some inconsistent statements, I don't think it didn't really end up mattering in this trial, did it? I don't think it will. Oh, here's the cutest pumpkin in the patch. Look at this guy. Isn't he just the cutest little doll baby? On his first pumpkin patch visit. So sweet. Again, you guys are going to be over at Gavel's tomorrow morning for closing arguments. They will do closing arguments and they will do jury instruction. And then the jury will go to deliberate and we will be on verdict watch. And I don't know how long that's going to take, but I have a sneaking suspicion they'll be done by Friday. But I could be wrong. I was totally wrong with the Karen Reed trial. Like, I thought that would be quick, and that was not quick. Well, it was quick compared to several other cases, but it definitely wasn't at the speed in which I thought. But we could have a verdict as soon as tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow evening, but possibly on Friday. And then another thing I wanted to show real quick before we go, grain. We were talking about, oh wait, it won't let me share this. Oh, I gotta share it. Duh, Stephanie. Okay. We were talking about safe haven baby ages earlier in the chat, and there was a little confusion on what age and what state. And this is because every state is different. Remember, we live in a country of self-governing states. This is what a lot of people, I can't even say like a lot of people outside of our country get this wrong, because most of the time I see the confusion coming from the mofos that live here, the mofos that were born here, raised here, took the Constitution classes in high school, and they still don't get it. But our states are self-governed, and that's why that there are a lot of different laws and rules and regulations in each and every state. So this is the ages in each state for safe haven. Here in Illinois, it's 7 days. So a child older than 7 days, those places that you take a baby to, by safe haven, it means you can take your child there, no questions asked at all. Nothing's going to be held against you or anything like that. So anything past this, you could be charged with something as minor as neglect to, more than that. It seems like most states is 3 days. That seems to be like well, I saw one I thought was shorter than that, but most states seem to be, there's 14 states with 3 days. There's 8 states with 5 to 7 days. There are 5 states with 10 to 14 days. 2 states with 21 to 28 days. 13 states with 30 to 31 days, so up to a month old. There's about 13 states that do that. There are 5 states with 45 to 90 days, so up to a 3-month-old. There's 2 states. We got Missouri and North Dakota, where you can up to a 1-year-old has safe haven. And then there is 1 state, Nebraska. Only Nebraska covers all 18 years. 18 years. So I did find that very interesting. Ohio is 3 days. Yeah, I know, Nebraska at 18 years. So they are covering safe haven in Nebraska for the whole time you're a minor. The whole time you're a minor. I think the state did a fantastic job, but since Casey, Anthony, and OJ, I don't trust humans when it comes to human judgment. Well, and that's the thing about juries, right? It's a jury of our peers. It's all of us here in chatter on the jury, and it's the cashier at the Circle K, it's the lawyers, it's civil engineers, it's anybody and everybody is on a jury. So we just don't know what they're going to do. We don't know who's going to be the loudest voice on the jury. There could be someone in there. Oh, yeah, I'll show the nerdy nuts too. There could be someone in there on the jury that is loud and boisterous and there could be a Melissa Jade on the jury who thinks a certain way and is able to, have the rest of the jury members see things through their point of view, no matter what that point of view is. So juries are give and take. They can go either way, right? I know 18 years is good on Nebraska. That is very good on Nebraska. The kids in Nebraska ought to be scared. I take you out. I brought you in this world. I can take you out. It's like I can't take you out, but I can take you to the fire station. Oh. So, kids in Nebraska, you better be acting straight, staying out of trouble. Let me do our poll. Let me end it. What do we got? Oh, I didn't. I ended it, but then it didn't show up in the chat like it typically does. Did it show up for you guys? I can't see it. Oh, there it is. So 80% guilty, 17% believe it could be a hung jury, and only 1% believe not guilty. Yeah, I'm gonna go with the majority on this one. I think it's gonna be a guilty charge. Absolutely do. Absolutely do. And this is Nerdy Nuts. I mentioned this a little bit earlier, and I told Nicole I would tell you guys what it is. So Alex Erickson got me and my husband addicted to Nerdy Nuts. They have like these drops that come out every Sunday night at 7 Eastern, and it's like new flavors, and it's peanut butter with stuff mixed in. And so like this one is peanut butter. Let's see. We put a spell on this butter and now it's yours. Smunchy butterscotch white chocolate peanut butter is layered on cookie butter mallow cream, topped with spiced cookies, puppy chow mix, and butterscotch chips. That one doesn't sound good to me, but they have lots of different ones, and every Sunday they come out with new ones. So Allie and I are always like, "Oh, what nerdy nuts did you get this week? What did you get this week?" And we are addicted to them. And of course, you got to have the spoon to eat it with. And then Wolfie gives us crap because she's like, "What do? You just eat it straight out of the jar?" Yes, you eat it straight out of the jar, and it is amazing. The cheesecake ones have always been the best, in my opinion. I actually just ordered the sugar cookie to try out, but yeah, I'm not a huge sweet treat person, and I do like these a lot. It is amazing. We are obsessed. We are obsessed, Wolfie. You're right. She's overhearing about it. It is not sponsored by Nerdy Nuts. And there is always a coupon code out there for like 10% off or something. But I just Google like Nerdy Nuts coupon code, and somebody's like some influencer's name will pop up like Mandy 15 or Haley 15. I don't know. I just look for it every month and get a little bit extra off. Who eats this? Peanut butter is but it's not even like, I don't know, it's not even all peanut butter because there's so much other stuff mixed in there, and that's what makes it good. No death penalty. Um, no death penalty on the table. I don't know if life without parole or just life in prison. Yeah, this is what we're truly doing behind the scenes. You guys think we're out here plotting and scheming? Nope. Me and Allie are planning which nerdy nuts to buy. Legit. I just got my box today. We got apple cheesecake, sugar cookie. I think Luke picked out sugar cookie. Peanut butter dreams. This is another one Luke picked out. It has milk chocolate peanut butter and like Reese's Pieces, mini Reese's cups. That's basically what's in it. So that was all Luke's choice. And then the other one I picked was birthday cake. I think that sounded good. But if you don't go on Sunday at 7, all the good flavors are gone. I had one last week that was so good, and I wish, and like they sell out and they don't restock them. And I hate that because I'm not going to buy more than one flavor because I don't know if I like it until I try it. But they had this one that was called like Vampire Kiss. It was the best one I have ever had. I wish they had more. You got a cart ready? It's so good. Yeah, Wolfie just wants the spoon. Let me show you the spoon. You gotta have the big spoon to go with it. This is it's just like I don't know. It's just like a quick snack. If you want just like a little something to pick you up, and just have a little scoop of nerdy nuts. Who wouldn't want a kiss from a vampire? Oh no, the apple cheesecake is amazing in here because like the cheesecake in these just means that it's like like a creamy filling that's in there, just like a little bit of it, and it just I don't know, does something with the peanut butter. I sound crazy, but they're really good. Really good. I'll drop the link again. I will not be live tonight. Why would I be live tonight? Is something going on? Nerdy Nuts would be your stripper name. I love it. Oh, you're asking if I'm gonna be live tonight so you can see tits. Yeah, I knew that. She's obsessed with tits making. Next time the jerks go live, I will make sure you know, Wolfie. You will be the first person I message and say, "Oh, the jerks are about to go live." All right, guys, let me grab Gavel's link one more time. And don't forget, you'll be there tomorrow morning while I am on Nana duty. Here's Gavel. Oh, looky there. Let me go grab it for you real quick, Wolfie. The jerks are going live tonight at 6 p.m. I guarantee you Tits will be over there. Now she's not over there. You're going to give me crap for forever. Oh, they do have an upcoming. Oh my gosh, I will be here. So let me grab the link so you guys can see this. This is hilarious. I was hoping they had like a trailer. Like, oh, they're getting ready to go live? They're getting ready to go live. Oh, sorry, I'm laughing so hard. There's already people in the chat. I'll see if I can direct you guys over there. Here's the link to it. It says comas, lawsuits, and lies. Oh my, they're live in 36 minutes. I'm sure that's gonna be funny. The jerks always crack me up. I want to see if I can push you guys over there so you can go say hey in the chat. I'm learning how to do all the YouTubey things. Starting to feel like a YouTuber, I guess. Redirect. And let's see if the jerks are on the redirect list. Yes, there we go. Okay. As soon as I end this live, it will teleport you JLR style over to the jerks. And thank you guys for coming in and being here with us. It is a little easier to listen to some of this when we have, like-minded individuals to discuss it with in the chat. And yes, I will be listening as much as I can over at Gavel, so you might see me in the chat there tomorrow, but I try to give Crew my full attention when I get to hang out with him. So scroll down. What do you want me to scroll down for? Oh, you want me to look at the chat? Wolfie says, I'm here. You have made it, Wolfie. All right, guys. I will see you in the jerk chat or gavels tomorrow, but hopefully I will see you tomorrow evening or Friday for a verdict in this case. And praying, I'll be praying all night that Quentin will get the justice that he absolutely deserves. Somebody's here. Archer's losing his mind. And that's my cue to go find out who is visiting. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Love, love.